Meeting of the Emeryville Planning Commission of February 28th, 2019. Can I get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Donaldson?
Here.
Commissioner Hidalgo?
Here.
Commissioner Keller?
Here.
Commissioner Thompson?
Here.
Commissioner Young?
Here.
Vice Chair Herrero?
Here.
And Chair Barrera?
Here.
All 7 commissioners are present.
All right. Next on the agenda is public comment. If anybody wishes to speak on an item that is not on the agenda, this is the time to do so. I think I'm seeing one there. And please sign in the yellow slip afterwards.
Sharon Wilshire, 45th Street Artists Co-op, and actually this is totally off the agenda and off topic, but next month is Youth Art Month, and there is student artwork that's available in the upper link. People can visit during the week from 9 to 5, and certainly when people come to a Planning Commission meeting in next month or to the City Council meeting. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the action minutes of January 24th, 2019. Does the commission have any comments on those minutes?
I move approval.
Second.
Okay.
Moved by Commissioner Keller and seconded by Commissioner Donaldson, right? Let's see. Who was absent? Vice Chair Herrero and Commissioner Young were absent, right? So then this would be 5 ayes and 2 abstentions, I assume, without exception?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and can we now get the Community Development Director's report, please?
Yes. First, with regard to recent actions by the City Council, they have had 2 meetings since your last meeting. Those were on February 5th and February 19th. On February 5th, the City Council held a study session on high-rise regulations, including unit mix and tower separation, following the one that the Commission had on December 13th. And like the Commission, the Council unanimously supported eliminating the current requirement for tower separation and replacing it with a finding that the proposed tower separation is adequate. However, the Council did not have a consensus on what the unit mix requirement for high-rises should be, and they directed staff to conduct further research on the impacts of the city's current unit mix regulations on the economic feasibility of high-rise construction. Staff is currently engaged in this research, and we will report back to the Council when we have developed further information on that. Concerning wireless telecommunication facility regulations, the Council unanimously approved the second reading of the regular ordinance amending the planning regulations, which was recommended by the Commission at your December 13th meeting. This regular ordinance was introduced and first read on January 15th, as I previously reported to you, and it will take effect on March 7th. However, they also passed an urgency ordinance at their January 15th meeting with the same regulations, so the amendments are actually already in effect. The Council heard a brief presentation on bird-safe building standards as requested by Council Member Bouders at the October 2nd Council meeting, and they directed that the Planning Commission hold a study session and provide a recommendation on the matter. Staff is currently researching the issue, and a Planning Commission study session is tentatively scheduled for your May 23rd meeting. On February 19th, the Council approved a contract with Urban Planning Partners to prepare an environmental impact report for the Ani Christie mixed-use project at 5861 Christie Avenue. A notice of preparation will be distributed at the end of March, and a scoping session for the EIR is tentatively scheduled for the first week in April. Details will follow when we get it figured out. The Council approved a contract amendment with Community Design and Architecture for additional work on the 40th and San Pablo Transit Hub Design Study. The original contract did not include the extensive redesign of 40th Street that is now contemplated, hence the need for a contract amendment. The Council approved a noise waiver for Saturday construction at the Estrella Vista Affordable Housing Project at 3706 San Pablo Avenue. The noise waiver includes all Saturdays except Memorial Day weekend from February 23rd to August 10th. And the Council approved a framework for paid parking in the North, Hollis, and Triangle areas that involves installing 2-hour parking meters where there are currently green curbs. The council's approval included some minor modifications to the proposal that was presented by staff. In other news, the Planning Commission's January 24th approval of the Marketplace Parcel B project has been appealed by Wareham Development. On March 19th, the council will set the hearing date for the appeal, and staff is recommending that they set the hearing date for April 16th. So I'm assuming the hearing date is going to be on April 16th, unless the council directs otherwise for some reason. The Nady site is progressing. Demolition is now essentially complete, pending final inspection, and the developer will then move on to site remediation activities, and hopefully someday construction of the new building that you have approved. Finally, concerning the upcoming APA conference in April, the National Planning Conference of the American Planning Association. You should now all have received confirmation of your registration for the conference. It will be at the Moscone Center West in San Francisco on April 13th through 16th. If you haven't already done so, you can go online to www.planning.org and sign in with your 6-digit APA membership number and build your conference schedule. Please note that your basic conference registration that the city has paid for includes access to all conference sessions, the welcome reception at the Moscone Center on Saturday evening, the exhibit hall happy hour on Monday evening, an invitation to the awards luncheon on Monday, which I highly recommend, and post-conference access to presentations and recordings. Note that while the awards luncheon is included in your registration, you must add it to your online schedule in order to get a ticket for it. And they won't let you in without a ticket because seating is limited. So if you want to go to the free award luncheon, be sure to put it on your schedule. If you wish to attend additional ticketed events that cost extra, such as orientation tours and mobile workshops, you will have to arrange to pay for those yourselves. And I hope to see you all at the conference. That concludes my report. I'd be happy to respond to any questions.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? No. Nope. All right. Thank you, Charlie. We'll move on to disclosure of conflicts of interest and ex parte communications. Anyone on this side? Nope.
I don't know if it matters, but I attended the public hearing on the Art Center when that was held.
You mean the community meeting?
The community meeting, yeah.
All right. Next is an administrative item. It's the General Plan Annual Progress Report. It's a annual progress report on the implementation of the General Plan. Hi, Dan. Is going to give us a presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Diana Kina, and this is Catherine Furpo, and together we're going to present this report. So this is the annual report on implementation of the general plan, which includes the general plan document and the housing element, and we also do a report on the housing successor agency to the redevelopment agency. Well, maybe if we turn it on, it'll work. So we're going to cover the general plan amendment that happened this year, and a table of development decisions and implementation of general plan actions. And this is the art in the new park. So as you all know, this year the city adopted a general plan amendment for 2.5 acres on the north side of San Pablo Avenue from 40th Street to south of 45th to increase the development potential there, to change the height, floor area ratio, and residential density. And so I'm going to go over implementation of general plan actions in all the different chapters of the general plan. In terms of land use, we saw completion of Emery Station West Transit Center, Christie Ave Park, and 6 apartments in Artistry. And building permits were issued for Marketplace Parcel C2, Ocean Ave Townhomes, and a second unit on 45th. Sherwin-Williams, Adeline Springs, and Ocean View Triplex got their planning approvals, and the land use chapter includes a few economic development items. The city worked with the Bay Area Urban Manufacturing Initiative to survey manufacturing businesses in the city, and launched Biz Nexus quarterly meetings. In transportation, the staff has been working with Alameda County Transportation Commission staff on a San Pablo Avenue corridor study, and they now call it an active transportation plan. That's the new words for the bike ped plan. The council directed us to study bus-only lanes on 40th Street and to focus the parking management plan on the North Hollis area. We've been working with Caltrans. They have some Ashby interchange working groups, and we also met with them with AC Transit about creating a bus left turn lane from Powell to I-80. And the South Bayfront Bicycle Pedestrian Bridge went out to bid. Parks, public facilities, and public services. One of the policies is to explore joint use of schools. Well, we've been joint using ECCL for recreation and festivals. We selected a developer for the Arts Center, which you're going to hear about tonight. And the fire department taught some emergency preparedness classes. And 2 parks were completed, and that one is a picture of Christie Ave Park. In terms of urban design, the city approved some public works, some public art for the marina. And we're going to be using reusing the Sherwin-Williams factory building. That's one of our policies to do that. And art was included in the Pelledew Park and will be included in the Sherwin-Williams open space. And Shellmound Street was realigned at the public market. In terms of conservation, safety, and noise, we gave out facade improvement grants to 5 small businesses this year. And 12 businesses were certified so that if after a disaster they can assess their building safety and get back up and running instead of having to wait till the city gets around to it. And the local hazard mitigation plan was approved by the state and sent to FEMA, which had comments. Railroad and a funding program for railroad quiet zones began, and this is a picture of about where we want to put those quiet zones. In terms of sustainability, electric vehicle chargers are being installed in city garages. Solar energy regeneration and storage programs are being developed for disaster resistance, and waste diversion and discard collection plans have been reviewed for demolition and construction. And Pelledew Park includes some bay-friendly landscaping. So now let's let Catherine tell you about the Housing Element Annual Report.
Good evening. So today we're going to be talking in the Housing Element Annual Report about the state legislation that was passed in 2017 that changed the way we do this report, which includes reporting on entitlements and building permits and occupancy. We'll also talk about where we are in our regional housing needs allocation and the implementation of the housing element programs. So the 2017 legislation these pieces of legislation required some changes in the way we report things to the state, all of which we have done in the report and you have before you. One of the things that they want to look at now, it used to be that we just reported when a building permit was issued, but now we're actually kind of they're asking us to look at the life of these projects. So we tell them when a planning approval has been issued, and these are the 3 planning approvals that were issued, which we mentioned before. We also, as per usual, tell them when the building permits are issued. And then in future years, we'll tell them when the buildings are built and when they're occupied. So here we are, we're looking at our housing element, which is the period of July 2014 to June of 2022, and we're 56% through the period, and we have met our goal, or we've met 32% of our very low income goal, 9% of our low income goal, 10% of our moderate income goal, 60% of our above moderate goal, and then a total of 39% of our total housing goal. And there are quite a few implementation programs and goals to preserve and improve existing housing stock, to encourage development, to promote development, to provide a wide variety of housing types, to promote equal opportunity in housing, to improve the unit balance and tenure for families and owner occupancy, and to promote environmental and responsibility and sustainability. These are the goals of the housing element. And we've made progress in 51 of the 54 programs under those goals. Two programs on marketing new affordable units were not implemented because we haven't had any new affordable units during this time. However, next time we come and give this report to you, we will, because we have 2 projects that will be marketed in the next year, or during this year. And then programs on working with homeowners associations to keep half the units owner occupied hasn't been able to get off the ground, partially because we're waiting for some changes in the FHA rules about how condominiums are eligible for FHA financing, which we've been expecting for a while, and we don't really know under the Trump administration when those changes will be made. So it's still on our radar. This is our site inventory. It got updated. This is another requirement of the 2017 legislation to update our inventory. So that's the end of my report on the housing element. The other thing that we bring here tonight for you is the housing successor annual report. When redevelopment went away, the housing assets came to the city, and then we have to report on those assets every year to the state, and we do that in the same timing as we do these other 2 reports. So we're bringing this to you. These are the issues we talk in the report. We talk about the fund, what money is in the fund, what sites are under construction, and what sites are in pre-development. So we made about almost $800,000 was deposited. We currently have a balance of $4 million. We actually spent some of our housing assets this year on the Estrella Vista project, so we are moving this money. There's some very strict restrictions on how this money can be spent, and so we really can only spend it on very low-income units, low and very low-income units. So, and you'll see under the expenditures how that was split up by low, very low, and extremely low income, the spending. Again, this is Estrella Vista. It's under construction. That's what we spent our asset funds on this year. We have 3 sites in pre-development: 3602 Adeline, 6150 Christie, and 5890 and 5900 Christie. Those are actually really one kind of big site, but for the housing successor, they're 2 different ownerships. They were purchased at different times, but it's all one site. If you have any questions or comments for Diana and I, let us know, and we vote to, and then please vote for recommend approval, council approval.
Yes. I forgot to mention last year that it would be nice to have a vote so we can tell the council if you recommend approval or not.
All right. But first we'll do questions. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
I have a couple of questions. Let's see. I want to go back to the land use section.
Let's see. Oh, here we go.
There we go. I'm hoping that you can provide some more information about the last 2 items. I'm not fully in the know about what those are, so maybe you can help us understand.
We just happen to have someone in the room who can do that.
Thank you, Diane.
He didn't even know he was going to have to speak tonight.
I didn't. So Chad Smalley, Economic Development and Housing Manager with the city. The Bay Area Urban Manufacturing Initiative is a multi-city effort all through the Bay Area where cities are coming together and promoting the urban areas as good places to have manufacturing businesses. And so It involves marketing, sharing best practices. There's a lot of activities that are happening. The initiative is run by SF Made and in partnership with other manufacturing supportive organizations. This survey was essentially a business retention survey where we ask businesses about what their experiences are and how things are going. It serves as sort of an early warning system for us if somebody is having difficulties in the city, but it's also, for this particular survey, was then aggregated at a regional scale, and then that provided information about the manufacturing industry in the entire region. So that's what that initiative was. The BizNexus quarterly meetings grew out of the economic development strategy that was adopted by the City Council in late 2017. One of the top items that was asked for, implementation actions that was asked for by this business community, was an opportunity to network and get to know each other. So we, last year, launched what we call Emeryville BizNexus, which are quarterly meetings that rotate around. We host them in various venues with a different educational focus and industry focus for each of them, and it's really just an opportunity for businesses to get to know each other. I've personally witnessed it benefiting folks because the diversity of business types that show up to these meetings is pretty astounding. We have website designers talking to biotech companies next to restaurateurs. I mean, it's pretty cool. And so it will be entering its second year, and this gives me an opportunity to pitch the next one before the formal invite goes out to you all on March 20th at 5:30 p.m. at Emery Station, 5858 Horton, in the atrium will be our spring edition of Emeryville BizNexus. And we'll be continuing on through the seasons for this year. So that's what that one is.
Thank you. Before you leave, were there any findings that you found that were interesting for the survey in the first item?
Nothing of particular note. I mean, our manufacturing, in the sense that manufacturing is used for this particular endeavor, is there's a lot of printers, and so it's sort of interesting to know that we have a lot of printers in Emeryville still, and so that was an interesting fact. No, there wasn't anything that leaped out at us out of this survey, and for the most part, our world of manufacturers is relatively small. It's printers, biopharma, and then a few additional cannabis and a few other types of businesses. So they're pretty diverse, and so there wasn't any particular trend that we saw.
Great, thank you. I have one more question.
Yes.
This one pertains to the sustainability section.
Well, let's just move on down then.
So my question is about the support that the city offers for waste reduction efforts. I have questions about the type of properties that are, is there any enforcement that happens for properties that are not compliant with the Alameda County waste reduction ordinance?
This is not something we have someone in the room about. I just know that Public Works Environmental Program staff do a lot of work on waste diversion and discard collection and waste reduction. They've been working to establish and increase waste reduction programs in all kinds of residential projects and in schools and businesses. So I'm not familiar myself with the Alameda County Waste Reduction Ordinance, but I'm sure Marcy is.
Yes, it's a recycling ordinance, and it's curious only because in my multifamily building, there seems to be a challenge. And so I'm interested in learning more about the resources that the city offers so we can help my neighbors in my building.
I will have her give you a call.
Thank you.
All right.
I have a couple.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I have, Diana, what's the status of the San Pablo Avenue Active Transportation Plan? How far along is it?
Let's see. They have developed some options and are running them by city staff. And they will be having some public meetings on them. A public meeting, which I don't remember when they are, but we can get back to you on them.
So it is moving along then?
Oh, definitely.
Right.
They have, the options that the staffs are sort of leaning towards involve center running transit, and in Emeryville and Oakland, bikeways along on the street, and then north of there, bikeways on parallel routes. But of course, we haven't had the public meetings yet, so who knows what'll happen then.
And the public meetings are likely to happen soon, or?
There's a date, but I forget when it is. I can let you know.
Okay. I was also wondering, there's a bunch of maps in here. Have we updated our general plan maps to show Pelledew Park and to show the park next to the park on Powell, the little dog park? They don't seem to show up on the maps that we've got in here.
Really?
In the general plan,
Yeah.
Pelledew Park is Greenway in the general
just,
plan.
yeah,
Okay.
just trying to think, the general plan is general, and
Right.
it shows the general designations of different things.
They should be designated park.
Right.
Anyway, if they haven't been, it'd be good
It
to...
wouldn't be a matter of updating them, because they were built according to the general plan.
But it's, oh well,
They should be in the general plan.
Yeah, they should be.
anyway. I do have another question, Catherine, about our housing projections. I mean, we always do really well with the market rate housing, and we're halfway through, and we're sort of moving along with that. Does it look like with what's in the pipeline that we're going to meet our goals when we get to the end of the road here? Or get close?
What year are we in? Sorry. So we have 85 affordable units that are showing up here that will be in the Sherwin-Williams project. And if parcel A at Marketplace starts moving, we'll have another, I think, was it, Charlie, 22 more low and moderate units?
Maybe, I don't know the number.
Off the top of my head.
It's 167 units total. 167 total units in that project, parcel A.
What, 17% of that?
No, it's not.
It's
Oh, it's not
12%,
17. It's-
right?
Well, it's around, I can't remember, around 20, more than 20. I think we'll get closer. I think we'll do as well as we did during
20.
the last housing element period. We're making an effort to do better on low income, and we changed our density bonus, and we changed one other thing so that we could create more we always do poorly on the low. So we're trying to increase the number of low units that get built. One of the things that we want to have happen in these projects, which we didn't used to do, what we used to do is we do some very low and some moderate in each project, and then we would have 100% affordable projects that had extremely low and very low income units, and some, every once in a while, 1 or 2 low income units. But what happens to people is when they, for whatever reason, their income changes or their household size changes, and they are in a project that only has certain affordability, then there isn't mobility for them within the project. So one of the changes we made when we did the density bonus is to try and keep multiple layers of affordability in each building, so that people can move as their income goes up or their income goes down, or their household size gets bigger or their household size gets smaller. So we're trying to reduce displacement in our projects. So that is one of the things that should start showing more progress in this.
And Catherine, we also have any affordable housing in the Nady site?
9 units, I believe. They decided 8 units. They
Units.
decided to use the state density bonus program, which gets us less units. So there's only 8 in Nady.
Okay.
But I believe they're all very low and low. There's no moderate
Okay, thank
in
you.
that project.
Is there in general any program specifically to moderate? Because it seems to be, that's going to be one of the harder areas. There seems to be a lot of programs for low and very low income, and then the market naturally takes care of the above moderate.
So our density bonus program has very low, low, and moderate in it. So At the marketplace, they have low and moderate, no very low through their DA, but everybody else has all 3 levels of affordability. And only when you use the density bonus, state density bonus program do you start losing the moderate. But actually, we have quite a bit of, moderate isn't, in our overall housing stock, we have quite a bit of moderate income housing.
Yeah, I was gonna sort of ask on the regional housing needs component. Yeah, the low and moderate are, only 1 point apart, and they are significantly lower than the very low. And so I'm hearing parts of why that's true. Can you summarize why?
So the reason why it's true is because we built a 100% affordable housing project, Estrella Vista, which is almost entirely very low income units. So, and you can see from our RENA that we're actually the very low and the extremely low. Very low and extremely low both are under the very low, but that's the highest requirement for us. And so when we do 100% affordable housing projects, usually they get tax credits. Tax credits require almost all the units to be very low, extremely low, and usually about 10% of them are low. And so we sort of increase our very low numbers when we do 100% affordable housing projects, but these projects take a really long time to do. They take 6-7 years from start to finish. So there tends to be a skew one way or the other while we're in the year that those units get their building permit. So we're just in a weird skew right now because of Estrella Vista. But as we get to 2020, there won't be as many very low. The proportions will change and they'll even out.
Okay, but in this case, the very low is higher because there's a different subsidy structure around that.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Although we do have very low in our density bonus system as well.
Okay.
Chair Barrera, if I may just embellish slightly. As you may recall, we revamped our density bonus system a few years ago, and the first project that really is going to come online that was approved under that revamped system is the Sherwin-Williams project. And the affordability requirements for that are proportional to the RENA numbers, so it actually will have, if I remember correctly, it'll have a higher percentage of moderate income, and then a slightly lower percentage of low income, and an even lower percentage of very low income, because the numbers are proportional to what our RENA requirements are. So
our highest is very low.
Currently. That's
right.
No, I'm saying what the
Requirements?
The RENA requirements proportionally, the highest is very low, then moderate, then low.
All right, well, whatever it is. Anyway, the RENA proportions are what we use for the density bonus numbers. So what I'm saying is that the percent of moderate and to somewhat the percent of low is going to go up after Sherwin-Williams is approved, is built, I should say.
It's their building permit.
It's their building permit.
On this report, yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's a building permit that...
A quick question about terminology, the density bonus versus the inclusionary zoning. I mean, how is inclusionary zoning affecting
So
things?
we only have inclusionary zoning on ownership housing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep.
We only have inclusionary zoning on ownership housing.
Okay.
Rental housing has 2 things. They have an impact fee. So if they build to the lowest zoning...
The base.
Base, thank you. Mm-hmm. If they build to the base, then they have to pay an impact fee. And if they don't want to pay the fee, they can do an in lieu production requirement. So it's pretty much the opposite of what an inclusionary zoning ordinance is. Mm-hmm. It's money first and an in lieu production requirement. Then if they need a density bonus, then they have to do the production.
Okay.
And both of those are based on our RENA requirements.
Right.
And of course, we'll get new RENA. One of the things that's happening at the state is there's a wellspring of people who are unhappy about how the RENA numbers were allocated in the last round. And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, if we'll have less or more in the next round. Because I think there's a push to have governments that haven't been producing housing produce more housing. So hopefully our numbers might go down.
Okay, yeah, your need numbers. So, and you mentioned that they're asking for more information around the life cycle of housing. And I noticed in the report, noting that, 535 have been actually approved, and then, 78 are at a certain stage, and then 6 are created. Is that the new information you're talking about, or have you always included that?
No, we also only include this.
Oh, okay.
This is all we used to have to include, which was when they got their building permit, they got counted against the RENA.
Okay.
But now they want to see the whole life cycle
Okay.
in the reporting
Yeah, no, I think that's a positive.
by individual project.
Yeah, it's a lot more work, of course, but I think in terms of understanding what we approve and how it goes through the system, like that our approvals are going to be much larger than the actual delivery, and that it's going to be a different timing.
Yeah, and it's very easy for us, a small city,
Sure.
to produce
To
this
track that.
information.
Yeah, okay. Can you go back to the sustainability slide here? So, thank you.
Oop, I
You're
did
going
go the wrong
down.
way.
There we go.
So I was going to ask you about the number 2, the solar energy regeneration and storage program. Do you have a quick summary of sort of where that is and what's going on?
That's another one I'm going to have to get back to you all on,
Okay.
but I will.
Okay, that'd be great to know just a little bit more about the program. Thank you.
Right. Any other questions? Nope. Cool. All right.
May I just go back to Commissioner Donaldson's comments about, you mentioned the park on Powell and the dog park and that park along there. I think perhaps what you're referring to is that in the general plan, which was adopted in 2009, before that project was built, there's a green circle on that site, which is another park opportunity. And in order to change a general plan map, you have to do a general plan amendment. And so we don't tend to do general plan amendments as we implement the general plan in order to update the maps. So I would say that is, we can just sort of check the box and say that other park opportunity has been fulfilled. We have a similar circle at the end of Park Avenue, indicating where the plaza is down there, and that's also shown as a, other park opportunity. That's actually there. So that's why you don't see it on the general plan map.
Thank you.
All right, if there are no more questions from the commission, I'm actually going to open it up for public comment. So anybody who would like to speak on this item, please approach and sign your name in the yellow slips. Which I think, Diana, did you take the yellow slips, the speaker slips, under your notebook?
Yeah, you've got them in your
In your hand.
Is there anybody that would like to speak on this item? All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and open it up to deliberation. Would anybody like to get us started?
I have no comment.
No comment?
I'd recommend
All right,
the council approve it.
okay, we've got a motion there.
Second.
All right,
Right,
Charlie,
who
did
wants,
you hear it?
who wants to claim the second?
It's all his.
Commissioner Keller. All right, moved by Commissioner Donaldson and seconded by Commissioner Keller to,
No, Commissioner Hidalgo. Not my, he was,
who was it? Hidalgo, oh, sorry. Got it. To approve the general plan annual, or to recommend that the city council approve the general plan annual report. Commissioner Donaldson?
Aye.
Commissioner Hidalgo?
Aye.
Commissioner Keller?
aye.
Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
Commissioner Young?
Aye.
Vice Chair Herrero?
Aye.
And Chair Barrera?
Aye.
7 ayes, the motion is approved. Thank you.
All right. And next, we will move on to our first study session item, which is the Emeryville Center for the Arts. It's a study session to review the conditional use permit and design review for the adaptive reuse of the Center for the Arts building.
Yeah.
Good evening, Commission. I'm Meeru Desai, Senior Planner and a Project Planner for this project. So this is the Arts Center, which the building that sits behind you is owned by the city. And the Commission back in 2011 did approve a project for that building. Subsequently, redevelopment was dismantled. There was also a gap in funding that would be needed to build that project. And after the redevelopment ruins settled, we managed to retain control of this property. I believe that was in we retained control in 2017. Last year, the City Council initiated the process of restarting this project. They did an RFQ, and Orton Development was picked to build this project. So that's what we are here to see, what the project that the City Council identified to be built. The details of which will be presented today. I will caution you that you have plans, and my presentation is based on the plans. The architect has, or the applicant has, will be showing you some slightly different plans. So just keep that in mind when they do their presentation. It'll be the first time for both you and staff as well.
And I have hard copies of those that I'll pass out when the applicant begins their presentation.
Okay. So this is the building. It's adaptive reuse of an existing 30,000 square foot building to accommodate a city arts and cultural center. So this is the existing site and demolition plan. So obviously there will be a lot of internal demolition, but what I would really want to highlight are the things that are impacting the outside. So let's start with the trees. There will be 8 trees in total that will need to be removed as part of this project. 6 of them are along Hollis, and 2 of them are along 40th Street. The red shapes kind of show you where major changes are occurring. So right off Hollis, this wall, which is currently brick, will be replaced with glass. Along 40th Street, this portion will be demolished. There is an existing City Hall trash enclosure, which is proposed to be removed, and there's an existing generator that is also proposed to be removed. So these are kind of more detailed in terms of detailed areas of things that are going to be changing. So this is the corrugated sheet metal along 40th Street that will be removed. The base will remain. And this is the trash enclosure along 40th Street, which will be removed in order to accommodate loading. This is the wall along Hollis Street that I had mentioned that will be removed and then replaced by glass wall. And this is the generator. There are additional doors and windows that will be included, and you'll see that as I go through the elevations. So this is the proposed site plan. Hollis Street is on the bottom and 40th Street on the right-hand side. The main entrance to the facility will be off Hollis, right here. The space along Hollis is going to be occupied by studios of different sizes. There is a cafe off Hollis. This cafe, the building wall will be pushed a little bit in order to make room for a larger cafe. Flex space and multipurpose space, these are the spaces where, it's basically exhibition space. You have a few more studios. And then the remaining, you have offices here. There is some co-working space. There is a conference centers, and of course bathrooms and break rooms. The entrance, and there's also a little entrance area here. In addition, they are proposing some storage space on the attic and also a small watchman's unit. So these would be additional flow area. This kind of breaks each use. So as you can see, the gallery space and multipurpose space and the studio space occupy the bulk of the building. And in terms of addition of floor area, it's about 6,300 or 6,400 square feet that will be added. Most of it is storage, that is about 5,000 square feet of storage, and the watchman's unit, which is about 615 square feet. So each elevation will show the existing pictures of the elevation, followed by what is going to get demolished, and then at the very bottom is the proposed changes. So this is the Hollis Street elevation. This is where this is the entrance. This is the cafe space, and then you can see these are new roll-up doors, which will be using existing breaks in the building that are there. The windows will be replaced in the existing spaces, and of course these trees will be removed. This is the 40th Street elevation. This is the sheet metal which will be removed and will be replaced with a glass wall which will serve as an exhibit space. They call it the jewel box, which I thought was pretty nifty. This is the north elevation. This is the elevation that faces the City Hall. Basically, addition of a couple of windows as well as a couple of doors. And this is the cafe space as seen from here. The existing fountain will be retained. If you may note, these are the staircase that goes up to the watchman's unit. So that is the new additional external change that will be visible. This is the elevation facing the City Hall parking lot. Again, you can see new windows all along here, and you can see the watchman's unit here and the staircase here as well. So in terms of operational characteristics, this is conceived to be a center for contemporary visual and performing arts, and the details and management of the facility is currently under negotiations with the EDH staff and Orton Development as part of the ERN process that will result in a lease disposition and development agreement to be approved by the City Council. So this process would be completed, and these details would become available when this project is agendized for the Commission approval. And this, at this point, is expected to occur in late summer of this year. So in terms of conformity with our regulations, this site falls in the public zone. The proposed center would be classified as community assembly large, which requires a conditional use permit, and which is why we are here today. In terms of height and floor area, the site falls in a 30 feet base zone with a 50 feet height bonus. And in terms of FAR, the base is 1 and the bonus is 1.6. There is, like I mentioned, a small increase in FAR, but it is within the base FAR. So no bonus points are triggered as a result of that. The existing height is about 18 feet, and with the watchman's unit, it will be, the total height of that corner would be 24 feet, and it is still well under 30 feet. In terms of parking, the staff report kind of details out how we have calculated the parking requirements. So the required range is from 58 to 96 spaces. And what they are proposing is 58 spaces. So the way this proposed spaces will work is the use of the City Hall parking lot. So the City Hall parking lot is divided between used spaces for the city and then spaces for the Bessler building. Once you take out the Bessler building spaces and the spaces required by the City Hall use, then you're left with 58 spaces available for the Arts Center to be used. So this 58 spaces are still not adequate, and will need a use permit for having parking below the required minimum. The findings that the commission would need to make is that there are adequate measures that will be put in place to reduce the parking demand, and that the reduction in parking will not result in parking impacts on adjacent uses. So this project will need to prepare a transportation demand management plan, or TDM plan. We will also be doing a traffic and parking study as part of this process to identify what is the true, once we kind of have an understanding of the different uses, to see what kind of a parking shortfall and what kind of mitigation measures that our traffic consultant proposes in order to ensure that there would be enough parking for the users proposed.
Excuse me, can you go back to that slide? The previous one? Oh, sorry. That one. Yeah, I just want to correct something on here.
Yeah, this is not, yeah.
Yeah, the proposed number of spaces that are available after you subtract the Bessler and the Park City Hall requirement is 28, not 58. So that's why a use permit is needed to reduce the parking. That's a typo. That 58 should say 28.
Okay. I was thinking about that.
So in terms of bicycle parking, they are required 6 short-term and 6 long-term. They are proposing 22 short-term in different places around the building. At this time, there is no long-term parking that is being provided, and I'm sure they'll address that issue when it comes back to the council, to the commission. Loading. So the project triggers 2 medium spaces for loading, and that means they're to be 12 feet wide by 35 feet long, and 14 feet tall. They are proposing 1 medium-sized adjacent to the city parking lot that will result in removal of the trash enclosure, and 3 individual loading spaces off Hollis Street that will access the studio spaces. This is a significant structure, a designated significant structure, and some of the significant elements are the contrasting concrete lintel over door and 2 windows, the industrial windows with concrete caps, and relief in brickwork. So these are the elements that are identified as being significant. And the preservation and reuse of any, and including this significant building, needs a minor use permit with the finding that the proposed project will retain and enhance all or most of the features of the structure that make it significant. It appears that most of these features will be retained and enhanced, although the doors and windows are proposed to be modified, and that's something that I'll come back to again. So this project was reviewed by staff of different departments at our DCC meeting. In general, the staff was appreciative of the proposed changes, except but noted that all the windows, new and retained, do not retain the original divided light window style. And we felt that this is an important feature that needs to be retained in the building. As I mentioned, it was noted that the City Hall trash enclosure needs to be replaced, and this is being removed to accommodate loading. So the trash enclosure will need to be replaced somewhere. In addition, the trash for the center itself and how that will be accommodated will also need to be worked out and before it comes back for consideration for approval. In addition, the proposal also removes accessible parking spaces and the generator in order to accommodate the staircase and a window, staircase going up to the watchman's unit and an entrance at the back side of the building. It was suggested that the restrooms be gender neutral with a shared common sink area, unlike men's and women's that are being proposed at this time. Solar panels were also suggested, but the bulk of the discussion at DCC was related to loading and feasibility and functionality of loading spaces being proposed off Hollis Street. So after a rather robust discussion, 2 solutions were identified. One is to restrict the proposed loading of Hollis to only peak hours. So the way this would work is the conditions of approval would say that all the leasing documents that are prepared for the studio spaces will have this requirement that all the loading occurs during off-peak hours and off off because would obviously be defined in the condition. The second option was to create a loading space off Hollis Street on the path that leads to the plaza area between City Hall and the Arts Center. And what this would do is that it would consolidate all the loading areas off Hollis Street to this one space that's completely off-street, and this would serve not just studio spaces but also the cafe. So essentially, having this area be a loading space, and then they would use this path to for loading and loading purposes for the cafe as well as for the studios.
So Maru, can you go back to that picture? Couldn't loading be done off of the door that's just facing City Hall at the back of loading dock, rather than going along the street side?
You mean from here? I mean, where would
Well, where the loading dock is, right, okay, so move your pointer up and over to the doorway here, now go down a little bit. Couldn't that be used for loading, instead of going around the sidewalk side?
Well, that could certainly be used for the cafe, right? But to service the studio space, the idea was that they would move through here.
Okay.
I mean, there's always an option to do it through the cafe, but it's really not going to be feasible.
But at least the cafe can do their deliveries through there.
Correct. So this would serve both of them, yeah. So a community meeting was held on February 11th, right here in the council chambers. About 10 to 12 people attended, including Commissioner Keller. And the majority of the questions and comments were concerning programming and management of the facility. The main concern that was expressed was the need for adequate loading for the Arts Center. The applicant has also and is in the process of doing what they're calling a listening tours in order to get more input from different communities within the city, and I will let the applicant kind of talk to you about what that has entailed so far and what their next steps are in terms of outreach. So they are making a full effort to kind of get input from community residents. So the issues to be considered here is, first is the design. Does the commission like the proposed changes, and does the commission agree with staff regarding the divided light window style and whether they should be retained? Loading, does the commission agree with the proposed locations of loading off Hollis Street, which serve the studio spaces? And if not, what is the commission's preference? And of course, if the commission has any other comments on the project. So that concludes my presentation. I am happy to answer any questions at this time. Obviously, the applicant also has a presentation.
Maru, can you kind of give us some information on the Watchman's unit? I kind of had never heard of this thing. What is the purpose of it? What will it serve? Is it a residence, so to speak, kind of like public storage places have? Is it that kind of idea, concept?
I'm going to let the applicant talk about that.
Okay.
My understanding is that it is similar to the apartment that was added at 4,000 Hollis Street, to the 4,000 Adeline Street.
Yeah, the public storage.
Not public storage, what's it called?
The storage.
The storage building.
City storage.
City storage,
So I
right.
kind of was seeing it as that. I didn't know
Yeah,
this
they added
building
an
would need
apartment on
that.
top. I understand this is the same kind of a thing.
Okay. And then about the removal, I can understand removing the Hollywood junipers along the building, but the street trees on 40th Street, is there any opportunity or plan to replace those, move those somewhere else? I understand they might move them away from the jewel box or something, but and they're not the healthiest trees, but is there any plan to replace those in any way?
Well, they're required by our urban forestry ordinance to replace those trees. So, they need to propose what they're going to do.
Okay.
At this time, but they will, those two, the ones along 40th Street are street trees, so they need to follow, the project needs to follow the UFO.
And how about sidewalk improvements? That sidewalk there is pretty poor, and just the way the tree wells come in and out of that, and it's very narrow. Is there any discussion of bringing those sidewalks up to city standards of, 12 feet or 8 feet or anything?
You're referring to the 40th Street sidewalk?
40th Street sidewalk, yeah.
That will be part of the 40th Street redesign.
Okay, that makes sense.
Working on the whole citywide thing that will include a two-way cycle track and a bus stop at that location.
Totally makes sense. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. Okay, I think that's all I have for now.
Any other questions?
I just had the similar questions on what exactly the Watchman's area entailed.
I think I'm sure they will address that issue in greater detail.
Yeah, I think I had sort of the same question
Right.
about the street trees, and the ability to upgrade those. But even Hollis Street, I know we talked a little bit about 40th, but even Hollis Street is in a pedestrian priority zone.
Correct.
So in terms of that sidewalk improvement, you don't know right now at this point?
At this point, the city has not discussed this improvement with the applicant. Ultimately, it's our money.
Sure, okay.
And there,
Okay, I've got two questions. One, is there any utilization of the parking lot itself into what would be held as events that they might want to use? Second question I have is, would it be possible to pop an opening to that, a roll-up door kind of opening to that parking lot directly, and someone could possibly use it? And then my last question would be, the entrance that happens at the front, would there be a way to kind of like make it a little bit more spectacular, or just a little bit more oomph to it? I know you have a big glass window there, but it would be nice to, those are my thoughts.
starting with the last one first, to make anything spectacular requires funding. That funding is ours, the city's. So that's that. The question regarding whether they are proposing any events in the parking lot, there's nothing has been proposed, but in terms of having temporary events, the parking lot is the city's, portion of it is city's parking lot, so it would be available if, depending on how the programming works itself out. And your second question was regarding the door from the parking lot. They are proposing a door.
I think you're referring to a roll-up door that could be used for loading.
Directly into what would you consider the flexible gallery space?
The problem with that is that there is a change in elevation.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's difficult. If you were to back up a truck to that wall, it would be at the wrong height. So that's why they're proposing a loading area to the south of the building, where the truck would back up from the parking lot parallel to the building, and then they could load from the south side of the building.
I understand. Thank you.
I actually have one other follow-up question. The infill door opening that's indicated on the Hollis Street facade, there's actually a pretty significant lintel over that seems like it was an entry of sorts. That doesn't look like it's being preserved at all. Is there a reason behind that?
I'm sorry, what, there's a significant what?
The infill door opening on the Hollis facade.
Okay.
But there's actually a lintel over that, and it was a more formal entry. I mean, there's an arrow that says, go to the other one, which means people tried to go to that one.
Are you referring to the main entrance?
No, I'm referring to it's basically halfway down the building. On the Hollis Street side.
Oh.
It's really covered by trees right now.
Right.
So it's not a roll-up door, it's a pedestrian door, or?
It's a a little bit high, person door, yeah.
Kind of right where the street light is?
Yeah, and there's a little bump out in a little articulation of the facade there, and it just isn't showing up, that's why I wondered.
Yeah, we should ask the architect that detail. Yeah.
Okay.
I would just, like to note, as Miru already said, just to underscore this, that use permit is required for preserving and renovating a significant structure. Normally it would be a minor use permit, but since this entire project requires planning commission approval, it would be from you. And you need to make a finding that the significant, whatever exactly it said, but that the significant features of the building have been preserved and enhanced. So if you feel that you can't make that finding, you need to let the applicant know so that they can fix it.
Yeah, and I think the question as answered is that, we needed more information on this area because of that lintel.
Right. Yeah. And that's why this is a study session. This is our first,
I'm sorry, did you
Go ahead.
comment? I was just going to say, if you were done with your commissioner questions.
I've got a couple of questions for Maruk.
Yeah.
Okay.
What would the off-peak hours be for the curb cut usage as they're proposing now? And if they were to do the loading area in that corridor between the Art Center and City Hall, would the hours still be restricted to off-peak hour usage?
Well, the whole idea, that idea was in response, I mean, the off-peak hours, this is a fairly, it's an egregious condition, and it's very difficult to monitor. So the idea is so the second option gives you that ability to, I mean, you can enforce it, but if it doesn't happen, if, say, somebody violates that, it's not going to stop traffic. And that's the whole idea behind that.
And being is because there's more space in that area for somebody to maybe leave a car there or a truck or something?
Yeah, so if your van pulls in, and it can take its time unloading and taking it inside the building, right? And it's completely off the street while it's doing this. Whereas, as proposed, you have 3 curb cuts, and they will be kind of sticking, there's good chances that the van will be sticking out into Hollis Street while the unloading is occurring. So that's the reason we want to try and get or minimize loading of Hollis.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
And Maru, that also mean that it blocks the pedestrian right-of-way while it's in that spot?
Could be.
Yeah?
Yeah. So,
Possibly.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just have one more follow-up question. So if the loading area were to be in between, in that corridor, would the studios maintain their roll-up doors and just not have the curb cut so that they can, basically use the sidewalk to load their stuff into the studios? Or would they lose their roll-up doors?
Well, this is an idea that we are just proposing to them, so this would need to be worked out. Ideally, those curb cuts that exist in front of the studios, which they are reusing, ideally they would be removed completely.
But I think the roll-up doors could
The roll-up door could say, I mean, it really depends on the functionality of the studio space, so something to think about for the architect, whether roll-up doors are still needed or not. But, you need to put in big space, big stuff into, so roll-up door does have a function.
Right.
Did you have a question related to that?
What's the depth on the second option for the off-street loading area?
When you say depth, you mean, what is it, sorry. What's the distance between here and here?
Here and here.
Let me show.
Yes. So theoretically, I mean, it's going into how large of a vehicle could fit into it.
Looks like it's about 35.
Yeah, I'll have to.
I think that where that gate is shown, that fence and gate, I don't believe that's the existing location of that fence. So, it can be configured however it needs to be configured in order to fit whatever truck needs to get in there, I think. Yeah.
And if need be, even that fence can be removed. I mean, the whole idea would be to take it not, ideally, it will be off the street, it'll be off the pedestrian walkway.
Well, I think what we do is maybe rather than opening gates like a door, do a sliding gate or one large gate. So if you had a longer truck, you could open the gate and the truck could extend beyond where the fence is.
Yeah.
Is one of the options we could do.
I would note that the applicant's drawings do show outdoor seating in that area.
All right, I just noticed we lost that. Yeah.
Something would have to be figured out about either you move the outdoor seating or you temporarily move it aside if you have a truck coming in or whatever.
And, we have to remember what Hollis Street functions as in this city, as the major vehicular way. Down the road in the future years, there's also possibility that you have a transit-only lane. And so, with that in mind, we need to keep that in mind when we are looking at loading, which is necessary, obviously, and how do we make those trade-offs?
I have one more question. So the trash enclosure was one of the issues with the site plan because there's a proposed loading on the 40th Street side, right, where that little truck is shown?
Correct.
Is there another location for that trash enclosure proposed or available that you guys could think of?
Yes, there was a lot of brainstorming on that. We are not ready to propose anything right now.
Okay.
But that was a lot of discussion on that in terms of, how this trash enclosure would work. I mean, I understand that the existing city trash is not utilized 100%. There is a gap. So it is possible to combine both the City Hall uses as well as Arts Center. Then the question is where it's going to go. And wherever it goes, it will involve some removal of parking spaces as well. So these things will need to be worked out. We are aware of it. We need to kind of work with the traffic consultant as well to figure out how this will be accommodated because, trash enclosure is needed.
Yeah.
Well, while you're in that area, another question is that the way that the hatching showed over the truck there, is that paved? Is it not? Is it low? I mean, it's a little unclear by the drawing.
So they will need to do some work in terms of, is this, if you're talking about if this is paved, then no. It's not currently paved.
Okay.
But the trash enclosure is right here, which is in the parking lot,
Right,
which is
but-
obviously.
But at this point, so there's a plan for the trash enclosure to disappear,
And there's a grade change, I believe there's a grade change too.
Okay.
This is the plan. That's what
Okay.
you're looking at
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
They
plan.
would pull up on grass? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Oh,
I mean, that's a question.
And that is, they have not.
Structured grass
right.
solution perhaps?
let's let the applicant address
Okay,
that
that'll
when
be
they
in
come
there.
to the
All right,
podium.
it's a question.
Yeah.
Yep.
One more question. So the other issue with the site plan that you mentioned was the generator where the bike parking is proposed now. It seems like it might be a pretty easy solution to move the bike parking to a different spot and leave the generator there. Is that the plan?
I had a really quick peek at the plans that they're going to show today, and it seems that the generator will remain, so they've figured that one out, but, so let's
Gotcha.
wait for them.
All right. Those are all my questions. Should we bring the architects up next to answer some of these other questions?
While the applicant is approaching the podium, I will pass out the plans that they've submitted today.
We're in suspense.
Should have lifted the microphone. There's a little bit of a difference there.
Yeah, just a little bit. Great. Commissioners, Chair, David Dial from Orton Development. I'm a project manager on this project. We are very excited to be here to give you a glimpse of our plans for the Emeryville Art Center in this informational for this informational item. I'm going to pause real briefly. We had the privilege of hearing the feedback from the Development Coordination Committee, and because of the speed of this project, we have begun to respond to that. So that we're going to cover a lot of the information that Miru covered earlier, but sort of in a revised state. And hopefully we'll answer your questions, and if we don't, we'd love to answer them afterwards. The property sits in your backyard, as you all know, and we feel fortunate to be a partner with the city of Emeryville to deliver this project for the community. We thought it would be helpful to step back and look at the goals that were set as part of the RFP process for this project, and we really feel that our project is designed to achieve, if not exceed, these objectives. Delivering an art-centric space is key to this project. We recognize the role the celebration of the arts has in driving forward the rich arts landscape of Emeryville and presenting it to the public. We look forward to being the new home for the celebration and also providing complimentary arts program throughout the year. we thought it would be helpful to briefly cover the interior of the building, and in the process, describe our strategy to address the number one objective, which is to limit the subsidy from the city and to provide for sustainable operations. Part of that plan is to provide a balance of revenue-generating uses to sit beside the primary arts uses in the building. Our plan includes a cafe that not only generates revenue, but it also is a great complement to the gallery-going experience and theater-going experience. We have provided, in addition to the cafe, office uses that provide day-long activity at the center, and that plan includes, as Miru outlined, office rental for arts organizations and private individuals, co-working use, and conference and classroom uses. When we start to look at the gallery space, we recognize that the centerpiece is the arts uses, along with most of the other space in the building. We have very flexible space. This right where the number 3 sits is a well-lit space that will be used for gallery and exhibit use, but it is also convertible to create darkened space for media exhibits. Adjacent to the gallery space is a multi-purpose space. We identify it also as a theater space. This space is convertible to, when it's not being used for gallery and exhibit space, it can be converted into event space or theater space with collapsible seating that will pull from the wall. This space provides for performing arts uses as well as supporting community events. And lastly, we have provided rental studios for artists to provide work, for them to produce work, and for organizations to use for the making of art and the holding of workshops. You can see from this diagram that we have a fairly high density of program space. We are continuing our work to find ways of getting the best use out of every square foot in the building. I would note that we are still in conceptual design on this project. We start our schematic design process on Friday or tomorrow with a walkthrough with our consultants, so still early on. I'm going to ask Marcy from our team to speak to the work that we've done together in the past and the architectural features of our project.
What you're seeing on your screen now is a view of the multi-purpose exhibition and performance art space. And I'm supposed to do my own clicker? This one?
You know, best is just go down.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. The key architectural features that I want to talk about are best illustrated by what Orton Development and our firm have done together in transforming dilapidated industrial buildings into vibrant 21st century cultural destinations. So, for example, just 10 times bigger than the Emeryville Arts Center is our recently completed Pier 70 building, which had some of the same issues, but worse. So, for example, seismically, it was almost collapsing. Emeryville is lucky that your building is in not nearly as bad a shape. And also, yes, there has been climate damage, but it's not nearly as bad. But nonetheless, we can say we can do it, we've done it. And also with Orton Development's fabulous programming for culture and their interest in the arts, like at Pier 70, and also at Ford Point, which some of you may have visited. It has turned from a seismic disaster into a a real jewel for the waterfront in Richmond, and it hosts a tremendous amount of cultural events, especially now they got a new ferry terminal next to it. Here is a well-known facade. We're not going to have all those cars parked there anymore. And as you can see, what we will do is we're going to have a great entrance. And Mr. Young, I totally agree with your assessment of what we should do with this entrance. There will be two places where we will be very, hopefully, dramatic, but in keeping with the industrial roots of this building in terms of making an announcement of, this is your Arts Center, Emeryville. We welcome not only the citizens, but regionally, people to come to Emeryville for it. This rendering is not the current iteration. It's a constantly refining, developing idea, so we will be showing you more renderings from here on. And this is what I've been trying to find a name for it. I mean, what do I call this thing? So we're just calling it the shed. It's at the corner of Hollis Street, and it's featuring right now that lone tree and traffic lights and a transformer and so forth. It's going to change into what we envision, as you might have heard, as the jewel box. It's going to be transparent. It's going to be glass. It's going to have so many functions, and this doesn't show what could be in there. It's a canvas into which we can have a screen that comes down over the brick facade. We can have art, we can have projection, all kinds of things happening in there. It's as big as, and David laughs when I say it's as big as a really great New York apartment. It's surprisingly roomy in there, and we're thinking that the sky's the limit as to the exciting things that this can happen. My only worry is that it could be so exciting it could cause traffic jams, but that's not a bad problem. And again, this doesn't begin to tell you what could happen inside. It's simply to say, we're going to take away that opaque box, and we're going to put something exciting at the corner. It's got so much potential for things to happen. And here gives you another view. We were taking away all of the extra boxes, transformers and traffic boxes and so forth. So we're hoping that all of that stuff can somehow go away. This is Shamali.
Hi. So I'm Shalini. I'm an architectural designer with Marcy Wong Don Logan Architects. So what I'm going to do is begin with an overview of how the proposed design changes can enhance the site and its surroundings, and then we can zoom into each of the individual facades, and we'll take a look at what is going on behind the facades as well. So some of the key parts of the site that we are trying to concentrate on is first the main entrance. Currently the building does not have a marked entrance that sort of declares its existence. So what we are proposing is two entrances, one main entrance from Hollis Street. This is located similarly to the existing entrances, but it's considerably enlarged. So right now we have two small doors of about 3 feet 4 inches, and what we are looking at is about 500 square feet of transparent glass with two large double doors. The second entrance that we are looking at is from the existing parking. The benefit of having this would be having a direct access from the parking lot, which would be convenient not just on an everyday basis, but also when you have larger events. The second part that we're looking at is the courtyard. What we want to do is activate the courtyard space between the Arts Center, the City Hall, and the Civic Center. What we envision for this area is outdoor seating and possibly performances from the cafe area. As you can see, this has access from all 4 sides, and it's well connected to the building as well. What we also are envisioning is expanding the footprint of the cafe in the northwest corner, approximately 600 square feet, to flush with the west facade of the building. This would not only increase the interior daylight, but it would also enhance the visual connection with Hollis Street and the whole City Hall site. The third one that we're looking at is the Watchman's Unit, and I know many of you have questions about this. So the Watchman's Unit, the existing pop-up on the northeast corner is being proposed as a work-live unit for a security personnel. We have a sculptural staircase that directly allows access to this pop-up from the parking area. While this, what we are proposing adds, almost doubles the floor area of the existing pop-up, but there is no change in height. The height will remain the same. What we envision as a plan within that 600 square feet of Watchman's Unit is includes a bedroom, a bath area, as well as living space for the personnel there. The next thing that we're looking at is loading, and I think we have already discussed it. Meeru has also pointed out a couple of things about loading. This is still in progress, and I think we're still looking at solutions for this. At this point, we anticipate the loading from the southern side of the building via the existing parking lot. The existing trash enclosure there, we propose to remove that, and we have proposed the other trash enclosure on the southeast corner of the site be expanded in area. We are also looking, since we will be losing some parking spots there, we are looking at restriping to sort of capture these, recapture these lost parking spaces. And the bike parking that was previously proposed at the generator area has now been relocated, as you can see in the plan. So
I'm sorry, where was the bike parking relocated to?
It's in the on the north side of the parking lot, in front of the Civic Center
I
building.
see it, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So now just taking a closer look at each of the facades, and first I'm sure, like, we have the plans just to know what's going on behind these facades. So looking at the west facade, you have your cafe. From the left to the right, you have your cafe area, and then you have a library lounge cum reception area, and then you have 4 small studios and 2 giant studios. So just looking at the elevation, the 3 elevations show what is existing, what is being proposed as a demolition, and then what the new building will look like. So as mentioned, and I think even Meeru has touched upon this, the cafe, the footprint would be expanded, and we would get a larger glass facade, which would increase the connectivity to Hollis Street and increase daylighting in the interior as well. 2 out of the 3 windows that are being covered by the glass would be extended all the way to the floor to create door openings within the cafe. And then moving to the right, you have the existing roll-up doors, which I know, again, there's the question of the loading coming up, but then like we were under the impression that the loading was to be removed from Hollis Street entirely. So at this point, what we have is new storefronts with exits from the proposed studios inside the building. And this would be happening on 2 out of the 3 storefronts.
Could I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
I'm noticing some differences between the renderings and the elevations. Which one should we be going by of what is proposed as of now?
So as of now, the elevations would be more appropriate because the renderings are, there have been many changes to the renderings since then, since they were first put out. Yeah. So and then the south facade. This is important for it is, and Marcy has already spoken about that, about the junction of Hollis Street and 40th Street, where the jewel box would be. Right now, the existing corrugated sheet metal walls will be replaced by glass. The existing 2.5 feet concrete base would remain. the existing 2.5 feet concrete base would remain. We anticipate loading, as mentioned, happening from this side, and so we are keeping the existing door opening and replacing it with a roll-up door. There is also a emergency exit door there because of the flexible gallery space inside. Moving on to the east facade, this is where the entrance from the parking has been proposed. It is key to note here that the existing parking is about 3.5 feet higher than the floor level within the building. So what we are proposing is a walkway at the level of the building that includes the main entrance to the building, and then the exit doors from the multipurpose hall all the way to the ramp, which can be an accessible entrance for the building as well. Again, the existing generator is maintained as it is. At several points in the building, we made punctures so that allows for daylighting for the studios and the offices inside. There would be a 42-inch guardrail that would separate the walkway from the parking. And then towards the right, you have the sculptural staircase that leads to the watchman's unit above. And then finally, you have the north facade, which faces the courtyard. And here, the significant changes include the door that leads to the cafe and some openings to cater to the spaces within. And now I'll hand it off to Carol.
Hi, I'm Carol. I am a project manager with ODI, so I'll quickly go over a timeline and then we can talk about community outreach. So right now we are in community outreach. We've already executed our year in. Next quarter, we hope to finalize our LDDA, finalize our design. Late third quarter, we'll begin construction, get some permits, and then we will open in Q4 2020, just in time for the Emeryville Celebration of the Arts, which is very exciting. With regards to community outreach, that's a core tenet of our design process. So what you're seeing, it's continuously updating, so we do have designs that reflect some of those. We have 4 dates coming up that we do small group events that are held at our office. There's lunch and snacks provided at all of them, and then towards the end of the month we'll firm up a date to have a large event at the ECCL. TBD, we'll send out flyers on that. And then with that, we will field any questions that you may have about our project. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. You want to start us off with questions? Anyone have questions on this side?
I have 2. So judging from the elevations, it looks like the windows are proposed to be changed. Could you give the rationale behind that change? And also, just the Watchman's facility in general seems rather strange to me, so could you explain the need for it?
Sure. Yeah, the first on the windows, again, we're early on in the conceptual stage, and we haven't integrated the feedback from the coordination meeting. So you should see that comment reflected in the future. It is probably more a drafting shortcut to put clear windows in. The Watchman's Unit is part of our revenue and sustainable operations strategy. I think the idea is to have somebody on site in this block after hours. It won't be required that person be in that room from closing to the following morning, but having a constant presence on the block throughout the week, we feel would be very helpful for the security of not only the Art Center, but the city facilities here. So that's our strategy.
Hello. I have a couple questions about the multi-purpose space.
Yes.
That space looks really exciting, and I'm wondering if it would have the capacity to provide film screenings for the community as well. Film screenings?
Yes.
Yes.
So it it is designed to be a multi-purpose space, so we would anticipate having at least video projection and a screen, fairly high-end audio system, as well as a basic theatrical lighting system. So, yes.
Great. That's exciting. And in terms of the acoustics for that space, what design considerations are being considered for the acoustics?
Yeah, so we are in preliminary discussions with Meyer Sound Lab to see if we can make it a variable acoustic space so that it could support instrumental music as well as films and spoken word. So we're hoping that it would be a premier space acoustically.
Great, thank you.
Any questions on this side?
Yeah, I just got a couple questions. We on the back side of the building facing City Hall is this water feature that we have, this tall, I don't know what they call it. It's that,
Fountain.
pardon?
It's called Fountain on the Plan.
The fountain on the plan, yeah, okay, so the fountain on the plan. It has a certain language to it that I think is kind of nice, and if there's sort of kind of thought of bringing that somewhere around the building at some point later on in the design.
Carrying the language of the fountain to elsewhere in the building.
Yeah.
Noted.
Great.
Yep.
Any other questions on this end?
One more question. Looking at the language too, you could, they can send some window mullions and patterns like that.
Yes. Great. Thank you.
Commissioner Thompson, do you have any questions?
No questions, just comments.
I do have some questions. Is the multipurpose space envisioned, you said film, spoken word, musical performances, is it contemplated that it would be available for theatrical performances? And if so, how would the storage space work for things like that?
Yeah. So not a whole lot of storage in the building.
Right.
And I think for all of those performing arts uses, we're anticipating converting the classroom, conference, co-working space as support space. So the green room, dressing rooms would take place in that, that multi-function space to the side. We would have, this building suffers for storage, so organizations would either need to bring things and take them out, or they'd have to be somewhat containable.
So if that classroom that is to the north, that's on the other side of the restrooms, was used for that purpose, then it would need to be connected better to the multipurpose room.
Yes. Noted.
Has there been, I know that, to me, it seems really, really important to have visibility in from Doyle Street, from Hollis Street, where we do have all of that traffic coming by. And I'm wondering whether there had been thought given to flipping the flexible gallery space with some of the studios for visibility further into the center, that people could understand what was going on in that part of it.
I think you're now above my pay grade, so I'm going to have to lean on Marcy.
Pay grade.
I can get in some real trouble right here.
And I am glad to see that the roll-up doors look like they're turning into something that has visibility through.
Well, one thing we could do.
Marcy, can you lower the microphone, please?
You know, I just realized I'm shorter than David. Just now it hit me. One thing is that the studios, and correct me if I'm wrong, David, is they are income generating, right? They help to subsidize the project, correct? So one idea which would take away income from the project would be to take out the studios so you could see straight into the exhibit space. The other solution, I suppose, would be to push these studios to the other side of the building, to the parking lot side, but that would then change all kinds of things with the theater itself. So right now, one of the things that was considered, which is maybe a minor or a major one, is the entrance to the theater, where you see that kind of zigzag thing, which just represents an operable door, is there so that you can have a long stretch of exhibit wall in that exhibit space. We had actually played around with the idea of having the opening to the theater closer to the other end of it, closer to where the studios are. If we had it that way, we could put the 3 art studios that are now at the bottom of the page and push it to the top. So there are trade-offs. And so I'm just saying what our thought process was in considering all of these things. So yes, if it's important to be able to see into the space, we could push those studios to the other end. It would have a ripple effect on other things. Or we could take out the studios, which would really reduce, it would have the number of artist studios on that side of the wall. So,
Yeah, I wasn't looking to suggest that you remove studios. I was more looking at flipping them to the other side so that it's, and not even all of them. You could leave some in the front and flip some to the back and then change the entry to the theater so it was closer to the main entry of the building. But just wondering if, just throwing out some considerations and wondering if you had a strong reason for doing it one way rather than the other.
There's another, but these are good questions. There's another thing, which is the jewel box, which is at a different elevation from the gallery. So there needs to be a ramp and a stair to that as well. And so that's another consideration of it's right at that point. It's not, it's in the lower hemisphere, the southern hemisphere of this space. So if we put the studios on the other side, the space becomes a little bit less clean.
Okay, that was the questions that I had.
I have a question about the east elevation. So it looks like from the elevation on sheet 8 3.4 that we got in the new packet, yeah, that one there. It looks like the little people on there, which I'm thinking is grade, is elevated above what the grade is on the existing elevation. And it looks like there's some demo that goes below grade. Can you just help me understand what's going on with where people are going to be standing?
Sure. So if you see the A1.1 on the plan, there are steps that go down from the parking to this walkway. So that will be basically the parking lot is at 3 feet 6 inches above the floor level inside the building. So we have these stairs that go down from the parking lot to that walkway and then to the building. Basically that walkway is necessary because otherwise you'd be getting out of the building and hitting, the ground. So basically what you see in the elevation is if you see those little grade people, they are standing in the walkway, while the other people who are standing on the black thick line are standing on the parking lot. That is just to show the difference between the two.
Got it.
That the walkway is at a lower level than and that's why you have the door which is cut halfway, because the door is going to the walkway.
Understood, okay. I also know that this is still like in the very preliminary stages of design, but I was just wondering if the building and fire department would be okay with having the 2 exits in the multi-purpose space in the same, on the same side for a space that's that big, in terms of like the emergency exits?
We are attempting to schedule a meeting with the fire department and building to review not only that, but the whole project.
Can I add something?
Sure.
In terms of that attic storage, so was that just to kind of hold like recurring pieces of art, and would there be consideration putting a dumbwaiter of some kind so people wouldn't have to haul that up and down the stairs?
We actually have one. If you see the plan in this small space called the gallery storage, where you have a staircase that leads to the attic, in the middle we have an attic lift. So that is what we were thinking with that.
Thank you. Okay.
And in terms of use, we're thinking that the artists that have studio studio space within the building could use additional storage of either their artwork or maybe tools or supplies.
You going to frame out some lockers or something like that? Or how's that going to work?
Yeah, still working on that.
Thank you.
That was actually all my questions, so does anybody have any more questions? No?
Good.
No? Okay, so with that said, I guess we will open it up for public comment. So if anybody wishes to speak on this item, please approach, and you've got 3 minutes.
Sharon Wilshire, 45th Street Artists Co-op, and also the coordinator for the annual art exhibition. And so some of these things I'm seeing for the first time tonight. And I think that, to me, I mean, some things that are really critical are loading and storage. And so there was conversation about deliveries to the cafe, deliveries to the studios, the artist studios that would be there. And you know, you have this exhibition space that's not just for the celebration of the arts, but it's going to be something that will be programmed year-round, also a performance space. And I'm not sure that I really completely understand the loading area that might come from where the city's dumpster is, et cetera, and where that will go. I mean, I just think that that's, I really appreciate the fact that Orton did send colleagues to view the end of this year's exhibition to see what that's like and, you know, the scale of the work that's there and what it takes to have it coming and going. But this will also be something that will be happening on a year-round basis for other exhibitions. So I just think that even though it's kind of boring, that accessible and adequate storage is critical, and I'm not so sure about the concept of attic storage for pedestals and additional things that would be used for an exhibition, but we'll learn more about that. And I'm trying to think, there was one other thing. And also, just to be sure that Orton Development and whatever's happening, I don't know all the details of what's happening with the new 40th Street corridor, that there's really a lot of information that's being exchanged there, because I think that potentially, even though that's already in place, that it probably has placed some more limitations on what can happen with this building, so just so that the right hand knows what the left hand is doing. So I think that might be it. I'm sure I have a lot of other comments, but those things were, you know, other than the separate things, programming and the concepts and expectation for the center, but just in the pure functioning. And I appreciated Commissioner Donaldson, when you even mentioned if things were changed in terms of what would be used for a green room, for performance space, et cetera, the connectivity. The same thing goes for the things that are in the gallery in terms of how much disruption there's going to be for where things are stored when things are coming and going. Is there any space that's any sort of a prep space at all with things changing from exhibition to exhibition? So, thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Hi, I'm Teresa Munoz, commonly known as Tree. I teach at Emory High School. I teach high school art. I also have a 30-year career in doing design and remodeling, design for remodeling. My function was usually to come in and work with the owners and the builders to adjust, to remove obstacles, to all kinds of obstacles. And I have great experience, or some experience anyway, working in art centers with storage, like cages of storage, carrying things upstairs, getting back injuries from things not being properly planned. So I just have a few comments, but I am coming late to the process, and I will attend some of the public hearings so that I can share. And I'm really grateful to see this much thought go into conceptual, understanding that conceptual is also fluid. I don't think an entrance that there are going to be large groups of people should be on that kind of flat side, busy street. I think we should flip the entrance. I'm just going to list because there's so little time. I think we should use the area by the fountain. I think it's a beautiful gathering space. Nobody goes there. There's already a ramp. Let's use that ramp. I think that the entry and studio should be to the north. Keeping the divided lights for the art studios to pay homage to a design style that has obsoleted. I don't think it's a good idea. It makes it really hard on the artists. And if you really want to keep it, put it someplace else. I like the glass. I wouldn't like the glass to be facing south and west. It makes it really, really hard to work. You probably, during most of your daylight hours, and much of the year, you won't be able to work in a room where you've got a lot of glass with that west sun coming in. You want to be on the other side of the building. There's a post right in front of the front entrance. Take it out. Parking lot, thinking about lighting and stage height. Where's the plumbing in this building already? I think that might be determining where the cafe is. Cafe, nice to be at a sunny spot. You want your loading dock to be, the primary use of the loading dock for big things is going to be for artwork, not so much for pallets with the food on them. Make that not on the busy street, make it really accessible to the studios and to the exhibit space. Build in the storage. You don't have to build in the storage into the spaces where things will be used, not in the attic, not in a basement. I think the watchman's unit might be unnecessary. Oh, and group gathering. When I take a group of kids, any age kids or adults, to any art center, and it's right on the street, and there's several hundred cars going by, it's just crazy. Think about a group gathering area for entrance elsewhere.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this item? Okay, seeing no one, I will close the public comment and open it up for deliberation with the commissioners. Would you like to get us started?
Well, first of all, I want to thank everyone for their involvement. I think it always creates a better project, and we still have a little ways to go. And the one thing I want to first bring up to everybody that we really need to consider, aside from the importance of the art center itself and what it serves, is the building we're working with. We're working with two problems here. Number one, it's a significant structure, so we're very limited in what we can do to the structure itself. We always have to keep that in mind. And this, even though this is a nonprofit organization, it still needs to make a sustainable amount of money. So what it's proposing in terms of workspace, the rentable office space, the studios, it's really key to keeping this place running and keeping it alive. So even though it has, and we're trying to ask this building to serve a lot of needs and a lot of people, so we just need to keep that context in mind as we make decisions and suggestions. I understand the idea of looking to the gallery from Hollis Street is important. I think the way this is configured now is the way it's going to work best to tie in the theater space with the gallery space, so you can open up both those spaces for bigger events. It needs to stay blending together. And to answer a couple of Ms. Wilshire's concerns, is there is a loading door on the south side. There is a big roll-up door, so when a delivery truck comes in, it will load directly into the gallery space. So I think that has been resolved. As far as the attic space, there is an elevator. There will be a lift, so no one should be carrying things upstairs. So if we need to address that and make it larger, that might be something we need to do, but that consideration has been made. Storage is always important on the UC campus where I work. It's becoming a thing that, do you store things, do you use space to store things you use once in a while, or do you create space for people to use? And if somebody has to store things off-site that they use once or twice a year, I think it's a trade-off to have space in which people can live and work. And so I think that's something we just have to keep in mind. I don't want to see a studio space be turned over to just a space where we store partial walls that we're going to bring out once or twice a year. So that's a programming thing that I don't think we should get into, but I think that's something we just need to keep in mind. This place needs to stay in business, otherwise we're just going to have a beautiful building that we spent a lot of money for and then had to close down. As a suggestion, we're looking at serving the theater space with the green room sign, and there is no connection to the theater without going through the main thing. So I'm thinking if we do gender-inclusive bathrooms, that would probably leave you space at the back side of those restrooms where you can make a hallway corridor that would connect. And I'd say right now, you see we're spending a lot of money converting bathrooms into gender-inclusive, so if we could do that right off the bat, let's get it done with. I think that divided lights are not going to create a light problem for artists, because the divided lights we're looking for are pretty large panes. They're not mini window panes, they're pretty large panes. I think because this is a significant building and this is in our area of the older industrial type of buildings, I think the divided lights is important. And these windows, I think wherever there are large windows, such as the cafe entrance windows, those should be large plate glass. Of course, the jewel box should be plate glass. But I think in the older windows, in order to keep the building indicative to its area, the Park Avenue district and stuff, they should be divided lights as much as possible. As far as lighting for the artists, I have perforated screens in my home that roll down, and I think those can help shade the artist space from intense light. So there are options in which we could do, again, looking at the limitations of the building we're working in, the cost constraints, and what many purposes that this building has to do. So I think it's going to be a trade-off somewhere along the way. I'd like to see, if possible, there's the cafe and then there's the entry lobby. And I think the lobby off of Howell Street is the place to put the entrance, because it's off of our main street, and that way people passing by are going to see this is the art center. So I think where the entry is the appropriate place for it to be. But I'd like to see more retail opportunity. I don't know if that's mixed in with the cafe, or if we could use the lobby space to kind of, because I know during the Celebration of the Arts, we saw the bags that were made out of the banners, and just I think there's some opportunities to sell some unique Emeryville items within that space, and I think it's another revenue source. So I think if we could look at that. I like the latest rendition of showing the roll-up doors on the street being all glass. I had a suggestion to make, if someone could bring up the drawing plan A31.1, there's actually an old door here that I would think, okay, so kind of in the center of the building between the first and second tree on the left, there's a door that has lights on the top and then it's paneled on the bottom. I think, and I don't know if we have to have roll-up doors or we can have swing-open doors, but if we could replicate that door, at least on that side of the building, I think we're getting, again, more light in the studios. I think we're getting more of that warehouse look or that industrial look. Just a suggestion, it just may not work functionally, but I just kind of like the look of that. I have another comment that I'm really not making sense out of what I'm writing, so I'll have to come back to it. But I think it's a good program. I think there's just a lot of demands being with the City Hall parking lot, the trash, and the trash. There's a lot of things we have to work with here, and I think we just need to do the best we can and accept the things that have to be kind of compromised on.
Thank you.
So I thought it was an overall great plan. Some things that I would keep are the existing windows, kind of echoing the sentiments. To me, they add a lot of charm to the building and kind of bring it all together. I really did like that idea of the swing open doors, if that's feasible, to maintain that aesthetic. In terms of the unloading, I liked the city's proposal for that off-street area. I didn't see, it looks to me in the plans that you just gave us that looks to be like a lawn or a picnic bench area right now. So I think moving the loading off of Hollis is going to be vital, because it would be very onerous for the city to enforce an off-peak hour unloading and offloading. I would like to see the current plans a long-term bike parking as well, so adding that into it. I love the jewel box idea, and I think that's all I have for right now.
Can we have the slide with the questions so we can be more succinct here with our answers? Thank you, Rue. So the design, the first question, in terms of the what I believe in terms of the divided light window style. I also agree that that should be retained. For the second question, about the proposed locations for loading off of Hollis Street, my largest concern is that it would block the pedestrian right-of-way for those that are using the sidewalk in the front entrance, and the loading entrance on the 40th side where the parking lot is, I think that is close and accessible to the gallery, so it seems like a good loading spot for the gallery space. In terms of design, I'm really intrigued by the jewel box. That looks interesting. I think about the projection idea that was presented and some ideas that I've seen in San Francisco with the Conservatory of Flowers and sometimes City Hall with the projection on those buildings. I think something like that would be really interesting there. And draw attention to the building, especially because that doesn't have the signage on the 40th side, and we really want to draw attention to that building there without the signage. I think that could be a way to do that. I agree that gender-neutral restrooms are necessary. That should be something I'd like to see in other plans too. But considering that and making it happen would be ideal. Let's see. And I was questioning why no long-term parking was for bicycles was included. You stated it there that it wasn't included. I had questions about why. I'm concerned as a bicyclist wherever I take my bike that it's unsafe, and just a couple blocks down we have bike shops right behind Home Depot, and so that's a vulnerable location for a bicyclist that wants to park their bike there long term. So bike lockers again would be a consideration that or indoor parking for bicyclists. And then I agree with Commissioner Young. The entrance, it looks like there's still some design elements that will be introduced later. I'd like to see some more dynamic entrance designs on the parking lot side, because that's another entryway that a lot of people will use. And right now, I don't know if there's any consideration for designing on that side. It feels like the back of the building, and so. In the next iteration, I'd love to see some design elements introduced that side of the building. Those are all my comments. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Young, would you like to go next?
Thank you, Ms. Guerrero. That's really nice of you to say that. In terms of that long walkway that runs down along the front entrance, and Mr. Guerrero is absolutely right. Bring the back of the building to the front. It's one of the things that I think we need to start thinking about buildings in all senses, is that all elevations are just as important as all other ones. But one thing that really is neat is that could you consider having walkway nodes, a lot of opportunity to conduct art outside. I'm also thinking about the studios themselves. Dressing rooms, or a dressing room might be needed if you have live models, or you have models going on. That was one of the things that you want to kind of think about. Another thing too that I kind of wanted to see that would be kind of important is a little bit more adaptation to the handicap in terms of, it's not a requirement, but they're going to move around and they're going to be able to have nodes. So the sense of that cafe is really interesting. So it would be nice that if the art center was closed and someone decided to have a business there, does that cafe act as an active, open, active restaurant? Cafe, not so much restaurant, but cafe, and that access to it from either around the side of the building on the eastern side could be kind of a viable thing, and those that work in the city could find it a kind of a recipe to kind of escape. I'm sure they really, really like that. The other thing too that I really thought was kind of nice is and no one's really talked about this, is how you're treating all those ceilings that go up overhead. So you're sitting inside the studio and you're having this kind of, they're very pretty. I think that's kind of, keep working with that. I think it might add interesting shadows. I don't know if that's something that you want to think about, if that's through the skylights, but I think it's kind of interesting. That's my comments.
All right, thank you.
Great. Yeah, no, I wanted to say that in terms of the revenue and the arts idea, I thought that was a very strong idea and would support that. And then also the plan as described, even in its initial stages, there is some nice clarity to that. So I found it easy to navigate and understand how that space would be laid out. So thanks for that. On the design question, I do think that the design guidelines should be consulted more thoroughly. I think the building design is coming along, but in terms of the urban design, and I know there are budgetary restrictions around that, but there are requirements around having a high-quality sidewalk, making sure there's landscaping, making sure that the surfaces are understood if they're sustainable, and so I think a lot of those elements in terms of the outdoor have to catch up with the building itself to understand how the full environment is an addition to the city. Also, in terms of detail, I know you're heading this way and you don't have the detail at this point in time, but in the design guidelines, there are very clear directives around lighting and paving and climate-appropriate design strategies on the site scale, and then architectural detail in terms of windows, water saving, energy saving, what the mechanical systems are doing, what the lighting system is doing. I know you're not there yet, but I would say there is some good guidance there. Make sure that's coming along. In terms of the divided light window style, I think my threshold is really about the detail of the facade and not losing that, because that's really a directive in the design guidelines. And an easy way is to retain the lighting. But there are other ways, and I would leave it up to your design imagination. But as long as you're kind of in the spirit of the design guidelines, I think there's some room in terms of the letter, and you wouldn't necessarily have to do the window light. So I think those are kind of the key components that I'm sort of looking towards. I definitely there are sustainability things in the design guidelines, from everything from the site approach to the urban form about green roofs, to open space about green roofs, to the architectural details about low energy. We don't often get that information, but because this is a study session, I'm saying take a look now. If you have those details, definitely bring them. We want to hear them. In terms of the loading, I think actually having the off-street location as suggested is a good thing. I do think, though, in terms of the Hollis and the timing and the off-peak hours, I think it will be equally important to say what hours for the space that interacts with the cafe space. Because yes, you can have movable furniture there, and things can come in. I think that's great in terms of being able to get off the street. But in terms of actually making the cafe usable too, wanting to know when that will happen, and just having some parameters around that. So I think those are my key comments. I look forward to progress on the project, and thanks for coming forward.
I think it's really exciting. I think it's exciting that it's moving forward, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it progresses. My concern also is the Hollis Street frontage and making it transparent, and I think the divided light windows, I like them. I think they're good, and I think that the rendering shows that you maintained lintels on some of the window openings there, but with the roll-up doors going away, you have the opportunity to carry that all the way across and retain those, and that's one more historic element that would be preserved. And also that little door that you had mentioned that's there that could be retained as well. I still think that I recognize that there's not a lot of storage space, but I think that there's still things that need to be worked out. For example, with the flexible space, are you going to have situations where you really need large partitions, and they're not likely to be going up into the attic, I don't think, but is there a place that those can go? And, the relationship between storage, green room, and the multi-purpose performance space, that needs to be worked out a little bit more carefully. And, I think it's worth playing with flipping the 3 studios on the south side to the other side and just seeing whether that could be made to work more efficiently. There's a little bit more of this interior circulation that I think needs to be addressed. coming in from the parking lot side, you sort of come to the glass wall with co-working space, and then how do you make your way around that to get all the way around to where the destination spaces are? You've got kind of a long circuitous route from that side, and that maybe there's a way to look at that or emphasize another opening that goes directly to the flexible space there to increase the flow inside. I think that it made sense to look at some deliveries, like cafe deliveries on the north side of the building. I don't know that it makes sense to try to put large things through that side because it's somewhat removed from where you're going to need the large things. And, I wonder, it's not like a retail or a space where there's going to be 17 trucks coming one day to, it's not going to be a highly, highly used loading space. It's going to be a very important loading space, and it's going to need to function well, but I don't know that, I think that there can be a hierarchy in coming in through the parking lot to a loading space on that 40th Street side. It doesn't appear that that's going to interfere with what goes on 40th Street because you'd be entering from the parking lot anyway. So I think that as a main loading area makes sense, and the one on the north side as next to the cafe is sort of a secondary loading space for things that need to be brought into those other spaces there. And I'm excited to see how it goes forward. Thank you.
All right. I'm also really excited about this project. It's coming along pretty well. And so I guess I'll kind of run through some of my comments. First off, I really hope that the loading on the south side on 40th Street ends up working out because I heard you say that you were thinking about expanding the other trash enclosure that's there that's currently used by the Bessler building. I forgot to ask this when you were talking about it, but I was just wondering how you guys were proposing to actually do that, to expand that and put the other trash cans there. Have you talked to the Bessler building? Okay, well, anyway, with that said, I hope there's a way to work it out, because the loading on 40th Street does seem like an appropriate location for some of the bigger pieces, like Commissioner Donaldson was saying. I am supportive of the loading in that corridor between the Art Center and City Hall, and removing some of those other curb cuts. I think that would serve the cafe and some of the studios pretty well. I love the jewel box idea. I think it's a really nice anchoring kind of feature on the 40th Street side without having the signage and maintaining the main entrance on the Hollis Street side. And I think it ties the Civic Center into the Art Center pretty well. There's this glass see-through transparency element that both have that I think work really well together. I do think that the entrances are in a good location, and I agree with some of the other comments that were made about enhancing the rear entrance a little bit to give it a little bit more prominence, not necessarily making it as prominent as the Hollis Street side, but doing something to enhance that I think would be good. I also support the divided lights on the windows, and also considering that for the cafe. One of the images that you showed, I think it may have been of Pier 71, had these very large windows with the divided lights that looked like they opened up, they were functional. I think that would be really great for the cafe space. Especially because if we're using the corridor as the loading space, then you're losing some of that, what looks like outdoor seating there. But if you had those big roll-up windows in the cafe, then it can kind of function as, an indoor-outdoor space, when it's in the summer months when it's warm. So you kind of have a little bit of, replacing that outdoor seating with that kind of transitional space there. I'm also supportive of the gender-neutral restrooms, so I would like to see that when the next time this comes back. Let's see. And I would also like to echo Commissioner Guerrero's comments about the bike lockers and having some secure bike parking. I was actually kind of surprised to see the new proposed bike parking over by the Civic Center area. It seems that it might make sense to have some of the bicycle parking, or at least the short-term bicycle parking, out in the entrance on the Hollis Street side for folks coming in on bike through that area. So if there can be some spaces, somewhere on the Hollis Street side or on that west elevation, that would be good. And I think that's it for my comments. So, does anybody have anything else to say?
Yeah, I remembered the one I was, but I did not interject that I do also support the north side loading dock next to the cafe. I think, again, it's not going to be something that's probably been used daily, so I think if the cafe put some tables there that were easily portable, that they could use the space, but when they know, like if we said we've set certain hours for loading in there, maybe early in the morning or something before they put out the tables, something like that, the cafe could work out their program, but I think that loading dock is essential. I think we need to get rid of the curb cuts and have no loading activity on the street at all. That street's just way too busy. If we ever hope to get a transit lane in there, we're going to end up negating these loading spaces if that's where they are. And I just think getting loading off the street is always a smart thing. But the one thing I did want to remind or suggest is for when there are events, whatever they are in this space, that I'd like to ask that the event coordinator or the organization putting on the event do something to promote alternate transportation use and available options. So like when the October art exhibit happens, that in their media package and in their information they put out that says that this is reachable by AC Transit and this is the route you would take. This is reachable by the Emeryville go-round. This is reachable by the bikes, and this is, it would be helpful to tell them that it not only is reachable by bus, but what AC Transit bus would take you to that location. So take a more active approach of giving people alternatives to driving, and I think that could be part of the transit plan, is if we put that in there, and then I think it could help negate the need for all the parking that we think we need.
And I would just to add to that, I mean, even at this stage, there should be a site analysis that includes all of the forms of transit that arrive or pass this site. So it's not in the package right now, but you will have to develop it as you go towards the transportation plan. I'd say develop it now, get people thinking about it.
Mm-hmm. And that's my other comments.
All right, anybody else have anything to add?
All good. Did you want to make sure that the applicant had adequate direction?
Sure, yes. Was that enough for you to move forward? Do you feel like you got enough from us?
Yes, and we'll watch the video again.
All right, sounds good. So this is a study session. We don't need a motion for this item, but I would like to take a small bathroom break, if that's okay.
I would second that.
Yeah, okay. Andrew can jump in when she gets back. Okay, so let's get started. The next item is another study session. It's a duplex conversion. So we're going to review a conditional use permit and design review to modify an existing single unit into 2 units.
That's correct. Good evening, Chair. Good evening, Commission. And there's a letter that we received about the project at each of your seats now. There's also a materials board over by Commissioner Young. And so if you'd like to pass that around, just, be careful for sharp edges. I don't think there are any, but it is sampled. So I'll be giving the presentation tonight, and the applicant is also here. Ryan Heath of Barron Studio would like to speak with you as well tonight. So the site location is 1291 55th Street. That is here highlighted in red on 55th Street, just east of Boudry and west of Vallejo on the south side of the street. So for project overview, I think you just pretty much said everything else there, Chair. To modify an existing single-unit residential building to 2 units. It'll add a little over 500 square feet. It'll reduce the height of the existing building to comply with the 30-foot height maximum. It'll include demolishing existing attached garage. All parking for the project, both vehicular and bicycle, will be at the rear of the property. And of course, new landscaping will go with this as well. So here are some photos of the existing building that the applicant provided. And the existing site plan here is on the left, and the proposed one is on the right. I know it's a little small, but we'll be going over it in more detail. And here's a larger version of that in color, with the green area showing the proposed landscaping area, driveway, maintaining the existing location on the east side of the property, with the parking in the rear. And there's also a trash located at the front of the property, where my cursor is right here. So here are elevations of the existing and proposed building. And here's those elevations in context showing the adjacent structures. And here's an overhead site plan of just the front of the buildings. So this is cut off just past the front facades of the proposed structure at the bottom and the existing at the top, with the buildings in context on either side. Here's a proposed cross-section of the modified building. There's 2 units. One unit that would be, for unit number 1, would be entered from 55th Street, and the rear unit would be entered, unit 2 would be entered from the rear. So this is what it would look like if you line it up side by side. So the basement is entered on the back there on the main floor, and then you go down, and that goes to that unit, and then from 55th Street, that unit, all the bedrooms are upstairs. So zooming in on this, it's flipping the orientation again, so 55th Street is there on your right. The bottom floor there has 5 bedrooms. The main entry is off-street at the back of the building for Unit 2, and the open space for Unit 2 is the rear patio, which is also showed here. So that middle floor there, that's where the main entries are, and where all the common spaces for both units are, and there's also an office for the front unit on the main level. And then the proposed top floor has 4 bedrooms for that unit that's entered from the front, and the open space is a deck that faces west, which is not highlighted in blue. It's the open space here. So here's the proposed west elevation. So this is facing a parking lot that's adjacent to this proposed modified building. Here's the east elevation. So this is adjacent to an existing residential building. The proposed south elevation, so this is the rear, this is facing the backyard. You can see there's a sunken patio here and a door to that bottom unit. And then the main entry for that up these stairs. And here's a proposed north elevation. Don't worry, there's color renderings coming, so we'll get a little more detail going on here. And so here is that rendering. And you can see a little bit of the proposed deck on the top sticking out there. Something you might have noticed is that there's a little bit of a lip here showing, but this is actually proposed to be level. It's just, it'll be fixed in a future rendering. So other angle from 55th Street. So this is the driveway going up the east side of the property. And then we have a further view, back view there, and you can see that there's a pop-out window here, and what's on the inside of this window to allow light in is stairways for both units. And then there's the west elevation, so this is facing that parking lot. And there's from the back of that parking lot looking towards 55th Street, and you see the rear of the building here again. And this is if you're walking around the building to the other side, so this is the east side of the building facing the rear again. And then an overhead view with 55th Street in the front, and that western pop-out window we can see there facing the parking lot again. So for general plan, this is medium density residential zone. It's considered an area of stability where there's not anticipated significant changes, but that doesn't mean you can't change existing buildings or modify them or demolish them. For the zoning district, it's medium density residential where 2-unit residential uses are permitted. So this is a permitted use and there's no overlay districts here. For the zoning, the FAR is over the base at 0.9, the maximum is 1.0. So that's what's triggering a major conditional use permit for this. So not the use, but the square footage. Yeah, that's correct. The residential density is consistent with the base, and the building height, there's no bonus available. This is consistent with the maximum 30-foot height limit. So bonus points are not required in the RM district. The required findings are neighborhood compatibility with scale and materials, and the design needs to minimize the appearance of driveways and parking spaces and garage doors, which this project does. So for parking, the minimum required parking space without getting a conditional use permit is 1 for 2 units. And here they're providing 2 spaces, 1 per unit. For bicycle parking, the minimum is 1 space per unit. And they're proposing 10 spaces, 1 per bedroom, plus 1 guest space. So for setbacks, open space, and landscaping, the proposed project is consistent with all of the requirements for these topics. And staff comments, this went to DCC last month. The applicant has revised plans to address the initial staff comments about this, which at that point was a lack of bicycle parking, small amounts of storage and common space within the units, and using some warmer colors and materials than was originally proposed. New curb, gutter, and sidewalk will be required for this project, and no significant issues were identified. The applicant has met with building and fire in advance of this meeting. So issues to be considered by you tonight, or does the commission have any feedback regarding the design of the overall project? And does the commission feel that all the required findings can be made for design review and conditional use permit for this project?
All right. Would you like to start us off with questions?
I have a couple comments at first. The report stated it was a Victorian building that's built. The building next door is Edwardian, so is just kind of the overall massing, of course, is really interesting, and so I think it's an interesting layout. Question would be, how did you come up with the overall feel of the building, and why is there a significance to that style that you're going for? Second question I'm having is please explain the openings. These are the subtractive and additive spaces that make the volumes.
Can we hold these kinds of questions for the applicant when they make their presentation?
Okay. So,
These should be questions for staff at this time.
okay.
Any questions for staff?
For staff? No.
No. Any questions for staff, Commissioner Thompson?
Oops.
Commissioner Donaldson, do you have any questions for staff? No. Questions for staff on this side? No? Okay, so then why don't we get the architect's presentation next?
Navarre did a great job presenting the project. My name is Ryan Heath, and I appreciate you hearing me today. So basically the design narrative was to kind of take the range of what the neighborhood dwellings are like with the traditional and the contemporary that are within the neighborhood, and merge what's next door with the commercial buildings, which is west of the project itself, and kind of merge the two together and see what could happen. It was really important for me to show parts of the original Victorian with the base and using the material with the wood siding, but I really wanted to actually play around and give a contemporary modern take of what that Victorian could be. And so that's where my design direction started happening and where I wanted to move with that. And then also what kind of dictated like the design direction for like how like the space worked within inside the interior. Obviously, was designed by what the units are. It's a duplex, and then instead of what I would say like doing a pancake style of flats for the duplex, kind of played around with it a little bit more, and as you saw with the slides previous that showed that. And so that's kind of how things moved around with the design approach. And one thing to note is, as this project moves forward, and we would like to try to use as much existing structural framing when possible. Any questions?
Do you have any other questions for the
not now.
architect?
So is that the full presentation?
Yeah, that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think, actually, I guess I don't have any questions, I have comments, so.
Okay.
Pass it on.
Yeah, I have questions. A number of the different renderings and representations of the buildings have really different color schemes and sort of different looking materials on them. Can you explain that a little bit, and which is the more current one? There's one in one of the pieces, the upper floors look really dark, which makes it look like a really bulky, heavy thing on top of the base rather than the reverse. And on some of the other ones, it's kind of light gray. So what are you contemplating now?
Are you looking at the elevations?
The renderings.
On the renderings.
Yeah, those, I mean, that last one was different. There was one maybe it was in the design narrative that looked like it was dark brown, so.
Maybe you can use your materials board to help explain what's going on with the materials on the building.
Kind of brown.
Well, yeah. I think that thing. I was looking at and saying.
That's like really different.
May I come up to show you the material board? This will help out.
If you want to come up, just use that microphone that's on the desk there.
Okay.
Because we need to pick up the sound for the video.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. But there's a microphone there if you want.
That was this time.
Oh, that was the previous rendering, and now currently what that is more of a warm gray.
Okay.
Yeah. And which is represented right here.
Right, so that's wrong too.
That is wrong.
Okay.
So can you maybe just talk to us a little bit about which of these materials correspond to the rendering?
Sure. So the wood right here represents the original Victorian that's currently white right now with the horizontal wood siding. And then the gray right here represents what would be for the metal siding that's on the bay and second level. And then right here would be the more for like the translucent bay for the interior stair. And the yellow right here would be the color of the metal framing around that bay.
Gil, did that
And
answer
that
your
other
question?
gray below the wood? The light
This right here is just to represent what would be the concrete pavers and for like the ground level.
And the dark gray between the yellow and the...
That would be the color for the metal paneling on the second level.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions on this end?
The gray that you have on top of the board there, is that a metal material that would be used in the facade of the building?
Yes, I would.
Sorry.
Yes,
Can you
I
ask
would.
the question and repeat the
I have to
question?
ask again for the people listening at home. The gray material that's on the top of the board, that's not actually the material that would be used for the facade, is that correct? It would be more of a metal.
This is a metal, and this would be approximately what the color would be.
I see, so it's to represent the color.
It is to represent the color, yes.
I see, not the actual material.
Yeah, well, you still have to decide what that exactly would be, if it's like a metal seam panel, or...
Okay, and I asked that question because I'm wondering if the metal actually has any metallic shimmer to it, or if when the light hits it, it looks like what we see here.
That would have to be decided later on once it's, we have actual, samples.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, no problem, thank you.
Any other questions?
Actually,
I have, sorry. How many bedrooms were in this building, the units before the proposal?
Well, there's actually 4 units in a single-family home. It was a pretty odd structure. So what we're doing is just kind of converting it back to from a single-family to a duplex. And as stated before, like one of the units will have 4 bedrooms, and the second unit will have 5 bedrooms. And these will be used for the clients and their families.
Great. And can you share with us a bit about the design elements for a modern Victorian? This is a new term that I haven't heard before.
Oh, it's the reason why I was calling it modern Victorian, because let's see here, if I go back, if you look, okay, on the front of it, what I did is I really took the design of the original building and still used the Victorian entry, the stair, and the bay, but I just kind of updated it where I continued the bay up to the 2nd level. So that's, generally speaking, why I called it the modern Victorian or contemporary Victorian.
Okay, and on the top level, the larger windows, is that a bedroom or a living space? Right in the front of the facade?
On the 2nd level, that's a bedroom.
Okay. I guess that's more of a feedback. I'll wait until a little bit later. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, I had one other question. I know you had talked about it being a duplex for owners, and I just wondered what the occupation expectations are, mostly because I was looking at the drawings and I was seeing lots of double beds, and then I was seeing, six people around a table, and I couldn't quite make sense of the furniture. So can you just give me the overview of what's the anticipated occupation and how many people and how many bedrooms, and just do that?
Well, there are 2 families, and then they have children, and they're growing families. So there's some room to grow, and then I'm also going to be using this for personal. One of the rooms might be a personal office, so there's some flex for that.
Okay, because it's 5 bedrooms and they're all double beds, and so I was like, is that 10 people?
Actually, most of them are queens, and then 2 of them I showed full beds for children.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
How much light's going to be emanating from that translucent panel?
Well, it would be pretty much a matte panel, and I'm sure we would have to decide on what exactly that material is going to be going forward. But for reflectivity, it would be less than glass.
How translucent is that window there, or that material?
Well, in this particular sample is it's pretty translucent. So it's mainly to get a lot of light into that bay, but not necessarily have visuals out to the parking lot. And that's kind of the reason why the idea was to use the translucent material.
So what would somebody from the outside be looking at when they look through that space if the lights were on inside? Can they actually see the stairs and people?
Just shadows. So it would be more of a kind of a shadow box, let's say, a light box.
Okay.
I have a follow-up question to that. On the other side of San Pablo and 55th, there's a multifamily building that's used a similar material. Are you familiar with that building?
I am.
And would you say that that's comparable to that type of screen?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
That is actually a really good example.
Thank you.
San Pablo and 55th?
It's on the other side. It's Adeline.
Yeah,
Adeline and 55th.
It's kind of a commercial building. There's a building next to it that has steel on the outside that's multi-story, that's kind of yellow trimmed, and then this is a adaptive reuse building, and the upper story is all made of this. And part of my comments was going to be, there's another building on Lowell Street that's just south of Stanford, in your neighborhood.
Yeah,
And
it's
it's
on Lowell Street. It's actually kitty corner from our office.
So it's a three-story building?
That is a three-story building.
And 6 units, and it's made of Corten rusted steel, and then a large part of this building is this same material. So if you wanted to go take a look at what this interprets, because it's really interesting, and you think, wow. And I've been inside both those buildings, and you can't see out at all, and really, you can't. Someone would have to be pretty close to that window to even create a shadow. So I think people going upstairs, you're not even going to see.
No, I'm was interested in what impact it has on the neighboring places, and whether it's like a great big glowing, it's huge, whether it's a great big glowing thing.
It's facing over the parking lot to Pickleworks.
I know.
Yeah.
I know, but I was wondering how much light would be coming out.
I recommend on any given night, just go to any of those projects and check it out. It's quite nice, actually.
That's helpful, thank you.
Yeah.
What were you thinking on the roof material? Is that an asphalt shingle? And what do you think about the gutters? Is that just like are you just having the water drip off the sides of it?
No, this is kind of a preliminary design for that, and that would be integrated later on in the design. It is in the process being designed right now, and
Is the asymmetrical pitch, and is that kind of the concept where you kind of sliding it to on asymmetrical ridge? Are you sliding it to give headroom on the inside of the room, or what's going on inside that makes that important?
Well, part of the reason, if you're looking at the image right there, it does give a little bit more headroom for the circulation that is in the center of that second level. And the asymmetry is also just my take of,
an abstract version.
An abstract version, correct.
Okay.
All right, are there any more questions? All right, then, thank you very much for that, and I'll move on to public comment. So if there's anybody here wishing to speak on this item, please approach. No? Being none, close the public comment, and I'll open it up to deliberation. Was there some comments that you guys want to make? Let's start on this side.
Yeah, I just want to recognize that this is a pretty, I don't want to say jarring, but it's a jarring rendition of what appears in the neighborhood, but we should keep in mind the Simpatico house that's right on Doyle Street, which is literally around the corner from this. This neighborhood is transitioning, and what I would recommend, I like a lot of what Barron Studios does, and I like this particular house in these neighborhoods because I think it's an American transition. None of our neighborhoods are static. I mean, you can go to some neighborhoods of Oakland near Montclair that are all arts and crafts, but beyond that, our neighborhoods are not homogenistic. So even though this is a little different looking, I think this is an appropriate item to put on this lot. And for anyone that has some reservations or correction, I don't know if Barron Studios did this one, but on Dwight Way between San Pablo and Sacramento Street on the north side of the street on the corner is a house similar in design to this. And what's really good is to drive by and look at the context in the neighborhood. There are a lot of these houses I see on one of my bike rides. I can think of 4 or 5. I just can't think of where they are. But they're kind of in our neighborhood, off into the Oakland neighborhoods. But that's when I could tell you could drive right by Dwight, just off of heading east off of San Pablo. And on the north side, there's a house similar in scale and look of this. So it would kind of give you some context. And then seeing this paneled window, it's really a different, I wondered, what is the insulation R value of that? Because it's like, man, does that transfer heat or cold? But evidently it doesn't. It seems to be pretty insulative.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So it doesn't say that it doesn't need some tweaks. I don't have anything to suggest on it because I like it. I think this big window is, if this were facing a neighbor's house, I'd have a problem with it. But because it faces an empty parking lot at night, and I don't, this is a stairway light, so I don't foresee a lot of a beacon coming out of there. I think it will be kind of a warm glow. And I just think it's amazing that you're getting 9 bedrooms in that property. The other one thing I would have is when you come back, if you have some images of these houses you guys have put in the neighborhoods, to bring those.
Oh, definitely, for sure.
Kind of show people who are not used to the context. And inside, there's a lot of open spaces where the stairs are and stuff, so when you come back to have some interior elevation shots, what that stairway looks like, that window looks like.
I mean, it was important to add like double height space.
Yeah, and that would be nice for us to be able to see how that translates and why this architecture works, because it provides a small house with a lot of open space. So I would suggest that, kind of bring in some of those elements. Then the other thing is really none of our business so much, but the driveway as you come in, you have the pea gravel, I guess, between the pavers. And where the car makes the radius into the garage, you have a lot less pavers and more pea gravel, and I could see the tires digging into that and turning that up. So you might want to look for something where that radius, where the car will actually make a turn into the garage, something more substantive that doesn't tear up the driveway as it goes. I like the idea that it's permeable and that it kind of plays on textures and stuff, but just make sure that it works and it doesn't look like hell in the first month that they live there. But that's all the comments I had currently.
Thank you. Dan would also like to come up and speak for a quick moment.
Come on up, Dan.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize when you said public comment that I was part of the public. I'm one of the 2 owners of the property, and give a little context of who we are with the community is that I was here about a month ago. We purchased the Doyle Street Muse project, and we asked for a permit extension. Thank you for granting it. To answer Ms. Thompson's question is that we purchased this property. My business partner Chad Matthews purchased this property a little over a year ago with the express intent of developing it into our home, his family and my family. To answer the bedroom question, I have 2 kids, just now have a third that has joined my household, and I do need a home office, so that's why I requested the architect to put many rooms in my portion of the house. Chad has a growing family of 5 so far, or 6 actually. 1 new baby boy and 3 dogs, and a new wife to be soon in about, August? 4 months. Wow. And so we've been business partners for a little over 6 years, and although we like each other quite a bit, we don't want to live together anymore, so we wanted to have separation, but not too far. We have a business that we love, and we have many projects in the Oakland and Emeryville area. I wanted to address just briefly the letter that I was given today by the neighbor. When you read it, I'd like you to realize that you can't necessarily choose your neighbors, and since we purchased the property, we immediately painted it. I believe it was considered somewhat of a blight to the community, and so we painted it immediately and found that someone in the neighborhood was calling every government agency to visit the property on a daily basis. And so we decided to hold off and hire a well-known architect. I think we made a good choice. We love their architecture, and we asked them specifically to design a property that would blend between the transition between the pickle, what's it called, pickle factory? Works next door, and the residential component to the east. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. We love the design. We think that there are quite a few things that we're fleshing out with the details, but I think it makes a good addition to the neighborhood.
All right, thank you. Maybe we can continue our comments unless anybody has any questions for the owner? Okay, let's
Questions. Can we pull up the two questions that we're supposed to be answering?
Yes.
So in terms of the overall project, I'm kind of split on it. In terms of the overall design, I'm personally of the belief if you're going to do modern, just go modern. However, I don't really see it as a role to complete nitpick over every design, so I see it as a you do you, and if you love that style, go for it. Now, we do have to make some findings, and in terms of things such as building scale, yes, it's the proper building scale. Form, yes, it meets with the general neighborhood, especially when you consider that there is a fairly modern home, less than a block away, and also that larger apartment building that's about, 2 blocks away. In terms of street orientation, yes, it meets all the requirements. Landscaping, setbacks. Props to you guys for going with the 10 biking spots. That's not something that many people give consideration in newer homes, so good job on that. The only real comment in terms of design that I would suggest changing is perhaps the color palette and going away from the yellow. That's rather jarring.
All right. I agree that you made a great choice with the architect here. I think that you're on the right track, and I enjoy the design. Contrary to some of my colleagues, I think that the yellow looks great, and I like how you included it in the stairwell. That was a nice touch. And the east side of the building that faces your neighbor, that side of the building looked like it could use a little work in terms of the design, because I'm really impressed by the remainder of the building, and that side seems like there could be some elements that are included on the eastern side. And overall, this design reminds, I love Portland, and it reminds me of some of the houses that are coming up in some of the favorite neighborhoods there. And so I think this looks to the future, and would support this design moving forward if we want to get there. Good job.
All right, thank you.
I think the design's really kind of cool. I really like the accent on the yellow. It could almost be any color, but just the fact that you're making a dramatic contrast between. It'd be nice that the contrast color would reflect to something down the street. So I have to admit that I don't know that street real well, and there's probably a reason why you did pick that yellow, and you're matching it on the stairs too, so it appears in 2 different places. The overall form, I think, is kind of ingenious. I think I was kind of surprised when I looked at it. I said, wow, finally a cool-looking building that, the guy's kind of, in the original house, if you look at the upper story, there's a couple really fun curves, kind of house kind of spills out. I don't know, you're still in design level, maybe think about that a little bit. That's the transition between the ground floor and the upper floor. You can look at that, and there's a kind of cool little house. Maybe there's, who was that guy? Michael Graves, kind of played with that internal, external kind of game. So it's kind of a neat thing, and so thank you very much for bringing that to our attention, bringing it to our front of us.
I think overall, I like the project. I like the scale and size and the reuse idea behind it. I know you are a little bit early in the design, but not totally early. I would say, and I said this to the last applicant, consult the design guidelines in detail. There's a lot of information there, and there is directives on residential development, specifically around the single-family home and the family-friendly units, which you guys are dancing around, and have some criteria that fit, but then it pulls in some other criteria which I'm not seeing in here. So just be careful to check those very carefully. There's some things too, just with detail, that the design guidelines suggest understanding if your windows are offset to your neighbors, and I just can't tell by the application package. And it's a very simple thing to do, is just to check where their windows are and somehow indicate it. So again, I don't think that would prevent your application from moving forward, but it would help us support it. So so try and include that detail where you can. The residential unit design detail. This question about the kitchen ventilation, entry closet is closed stair risers. These are some of the details that the design guidelines indicate, and we just don't have information on. And it's a little bit early for, kitchen ventilation and things like that, but make sure they show up in the package. And then the family-friendly design, I think with the larger unit size and the family orientation, you're definitely fulfilling that. But in terms of, it does suggest one master bedroom, and Unit 1 looks to have 2 master bedroom suites. And so there's sort of some things there that you should take a look at. The question about soundproofing, particularly when on the first floor, when you have an upper level over a sleeping area, I'm not sure how you're going to handle that. I just don't have the detail. But those things should be thought about. There are things in the design guidelines like the stair detail, the issue of being able to put a toddler gate up. Your stair design at this time doesn't look like it can accommodate that. So those are things to think about. And so I think in general I'd sort of direct you towards that and say overall the project is on the right track. The contemporary design, I like the contemporary design. I think it's nice with the similar urban design and massing of the neighborhoods. I did have one other thing about the circulation. Your entry sequence is a little, it sort of misses the Victorian foyer idea. You've sort of eliminated it. And so you're spilling directly into the front room. And then you're not aligned with getting to the stairwell. You're kind of offset to move over. So there's some sort of little things that you may want to revisit as the design advances. And I think that, and then I think the only other thing I spotted in terms of the interior detail is that the lower, Unit 2, the lower unit, has a direct entry outside from a bedroom, which I think is a bit of a security concern. So I'd love to understand, sort of how you're dealing with that, or how you see that use of that room and the direct interior out here, because it's nice to be able to go outside, but if someone can come inside, that's not as nice. So I think those are the things that sort of stood out. But I think it's good for where it is in terms of the development. So thanks for bringing it forward.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting project, and it's clearly in process, and what I'm going to be really interested in is really getting a better understanding of the materials, because there were differences in the renderings and differences in even just sort of the textures and patterns on some of the things on the facades. When you're dealing with such simple form, the texture and the materials are really, really important, and I didn't get a sense that I understood what what's happening with that. So that's going to be really important to have that developed more fully. But and I did actually have one question about if there's 2 cars parked there and a 10 bicycle thing, how are you getting the bicycles out of there? It looks like
Well, the idea would be like sliding doors, so you...
Right, but if the cars are parked, if that's where the cars are parked... Anyway, that's just something to think about.
Due to the space constraints, there would have to be some play, and then the cars might have to be pulled back 2 feet to be able to actually maneuver around there.
Okay.
But the idea was to try to get bicycle parking in there, so that was the best solution I came up with at that time.
That's appreciated, but okay. So yeah, I'm looking forward to understanding the materials a little bit better, and whether there are other pieces that are somewhat articulated. You were talking about the gutters, just understanding that, because it is it's a lot of the representation are more massing studies than really, it has a ways to go, but it seems to be going in the right direction.
I'm generally supportive of the idea. I think it's kind of interesting to have taken the original massing of the building and kind of reproducing it in a modern way. So I appreciate that. And I'll kind of point out a couple of the things that little issues that I had with the design. First is the lack of trim on the roof. In the rendering, I think you can kind of see that it feels like it stops very abruptly. And even in some of these pictures that you provided for the sample material on sheet A-203, there is a small trim on all of these buildings, and I understand that this is kind of a different form than what you're proposing, but I think it might be worth it to explore adding some kind of detail to the roof to see how that would look so that it's not, so that it doesn't end so abruptly. So that's one comment. And the second thing was related to the front elevation. You have the, I think what you're calling the like white siding, the white wood siding that goes from the second level all the way down to the lower level. And there's this big blank space there that I'm having trouble kind of wrapping my head around. And I was wondering, and I was trying to kind of figure out like what might a solution be for that, because I understand that on the lower level you have the closets on the floor plan, and you might not want windows there because it's right up on the street. And then on the second level, there's a bathroom in that space. So I was wondering if it might be possible to extend the stairs out to the front of the building to create kind of a little porch area to fill in some of that space, and that would kind of be, tying it back to that same kind of Victorian style. So those were my only two kind of comments. Oh, one other thing. I think that you have an opportunity with the railing that you have throughout the building to add a little bit more contrast. You have a lot of, the metal and the white wood together is kind of in a similar palette. And I think there's an opportunity to play with the materials and have a little bit of contrast with the railing. But other than that, I think those are my only comments, and I like the design. I think it's pretty interesting. You guys do cool work. So, I appreciate the boldness with the yellow translucent window idea. I think it's pretty cool, and I look forward to seeing this again. All right. Anything else from anyone?
I actually had a staff question, a little late in the game, but was about the trash on the front. I know that is that will actually have to be cleared. Does that seem like it was a conditional use?
It's a minor, yeah. Any deviation from the restrictions on what's allowed in yard areas, normally that would be a minor conditional use permit that would be handled by staff. Since this entire project requires planning commission approval because of the floor area ratio, then all of the approvals come to the commission, so.
Okay, so you guys can review that, but, and then that's consistent with how the trash is handled in the other houses nearby?
Maybe
No alleys there?
Navarre maybe could respond to that.
So in terms of it being consistent with how trash is handled in other houses nearby, I'm not quite sure how to answer that question, and that I don't have like an assessment like how that's handled by each unit. Yeah. However, Marcy Greenhut, who's in our Public Works Department, reviews all trash enclosures that go into the city, and reviewed this plan, and actually it's been resized already.
Yes.
In response to Marcy's comments, and the location staff felt was appropriate for this development. Didn't really seem necessary to place the trash enclosure. The only other place would be at the rear of the property, and to go dunk.
Yeah, it's pretty
I'm glad I did the sound effect for you.
That was good. You were talking about. That was excellent.
Or something like that.
Animation.
I did the head thing, right? Didn't really feel like that was a necessary attribute to add to this project, that perhaps this was the simplest design solution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no more comments, this study session, so again, no motions needed, but does the applicant and staff have enough feedback from staff, from the commission?
I agree so, and thank you very much.
Yep, all right. All right, thank you very much. So we'll move on to the next item, which is planning commissioner comments. Does anybody have any comments? Oh, All right. So
Yeah,
the meeting is...
Well, I think right before you adjourn.
Okay.
I think I'm, because I'm sort of on my design guidelines jag tonight, that I would say, it's great to see, I think these projects are all great. It's great to have the study sessions and to be able to talk about the details of it. But there's a lot of information in the design guidelines. And I would suggest that we definitely hold applicants to reviewing them and to addressing them where they can. So that's my only comment.
All right. Thank you very much. So the meeting is adjourned.